Hello, we are here. It's been a minute. The May-June recap slash preview of the Boys of Summer podcast. I am joined by my co-host and co-commish, Eric Follman. Eric, how you doing
Hey,
today?
doing pretty good. Enjoying summer, teacher life, can't complain. Just been hanging out, watching baseball, chilling out, having a good time. Excited to talk about this finally with our finally getting off the IL, huh?
Yeah, can't complain one bit about the teacher summer. You guys are gonna hear a lot of rasp. You're gonna hear a lot of coughing. I don't locate the mute button very well on my computer, so you're just gonna have to hear all the coughs and all the sneezes and the loogies and all that. You're just gonna have to deal with it for the next 2.5 hours or however long this takes. We're probably not gonna go short. This probably won't be a short one. We're gonna prepare you guys now. But we have a lot to get to. It's been a minute. We got 2 months of baseball to cover. And before we jump into the fantasy stuff, Eric, what surprised you about our baseball season so far? First of all, I'm just glad it's here. But what surprised
Yes.
you about it?
Obviously, I think early in the season we saw like the inaction on offenses with the limited amount of runs being scored, which was kind of surprising because a lot of the pitchers really weren't stretched out for a while, and we kind of saw that early. It was hard to get wins quality starts from a fantasy perspective just because pitchers were not going deep into ball games. But maybe because hitters were seeing so many different pitchers early, it was making it tough for them to score. But I will say the fact that both Chicago baseball teams are below 500 is not very surprising to me. No, I'm just kidding. I really thought the White Sox would do better. Injuries are piling up, but maybe next year, right? Do they start getting to use that slogan? I don't know.
Yeah, there's always next year. Yeah, I mean the pitcher stretching out thing, it was kind of a weird thing because we all expected it to be something that hindered fantasy value early on. I was not expecting pitchers to get stretched out as quickly as they did. I feel like 2-3 weeks in, it was just kind of back to normal. Pitchers were throwing 105, 110 pitches, and we were getting frustrated because we were seeing guys like Shane Bieber throw 108 pitches and they're like third or fourth start and then get lit up third time through the lineup going, what the hell's going on? These guys aren't ready for this yet. But, some pitchers handle it. Some teams handle it better than others. And it seemed like once we were a month in, everything was kind of back to normal. It was interesting to see. Offense typically gets suppressed in the spring with the cold weather. People talk about that a lot, how there's not really many runs scored early in the year compared to the warm months and the warmer climates where the ball seems to travel a lot more. So I think things are kind of starting to catch up. Some of the outlier pitching performances from some guys are really starting to catch up to them. It's going to be interesting to see kind of how the pitching standings change throughout the year. When I look at the standings, there's a few things that pop out to me. First off, White Sox, nice job being 5 back of the Twinnies. Good job there, White Sox fans. The Blue Jays, not anymore. They've gone on a tear last few weeks, but they had a negative run differential up until about a week or two ago. But they've kind of turned on the Jets. They're getting some good pitching. Their offense is kind of coming alive. So they've starting to pick up the pace, but they still got some ground to make up if they want to catch the Yankees. Not looking likely at this point. But Red Sox being 3 games under 500, I think definitely surprising. The Mets being 17 games above 500 was definitely a surprise. Yankees playing as well as they are too. And I think baseball as a whole is better when the big market teams like the Mets and the Yankees and the Dodgers and all them are good and relevant. And then last, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about how my Cubbies are 2 games below the Pittsburgh Pirates. Eric, we were told in the offseason that money would be spent and that they would put a team on the field. We were told that we'd be better than the fucking Pirates, who are literally trying to tank. They are not trying to win games, and we are 2 games below them in the standings. What the fuck is going on? Why are we so dysfunctional?
I think this is about as expected. I don't know. This is kind of, if you would have asked me where they'd be June 9th with the team they put out there, this is kind of about what I thought. But I don't know, man. This is kind of going to be crazy to say, but I felt like this is a more fun team to watch than over the last couple of years. I feel like they're playing hard. I feel like they're actually playing, seeing the bat on ball better. There's not as many strikeouts with the Rizzo Baez era Rizzo. And let's say this too. Go look at a lot of those players that left the Cubs: Baez, Rizzo. Yeah, Rizzo's hitting the home runs, but a lot of those wouldn't be out in Wrigley. If you look at almost all those players that we could have re-signed and brought him back, granted, I wanted Rizzo back. I'd still want Rizzo back, but a lot of those players are struggling or not playing. I mean, it's not good. Baez is awful in Detroit right now. So this is kind of about what's expected to me so far. I don't know. I didn't really expect any. If anything, the Pirates are overperforming. I don't know.
This is kind of something that you kind of have to say quietly around Cubs fans, but Jed Hoyer looks kind of smart right about now, doesn't he? I mean,
Yeah.
getting rid of Javier Baez and getting Pete Crow Armstrong back, who looks solid in the minors, and we're hopefully, by next year he's looking like can be a foundational piece for us. Trading away Kimbrel, trading away Bryant, trading away Rizzo. I mean, Bryant came and get on the field with back injuries. He's always been hurt for the last few years, hasn't been near the performance I just had since his MVP season, and having to give him the contract we would have had to give him to keep him in Chicago would have probably been a disaster. Rizzo's been good, but, obviously we got to develop our players, and there's no really use to have a guy like Rizzo, other than clubhouse leadership on this current team as it's currently constituted. So, I mean, all those moves that they made, although they stung, it was really dirt in the wound, but it kind of had to be made. And it seems like some of the guys we got back at some of those deals have been productive in the minors. We haven't really got
Morel too. Morel.
Morel has been solid, but yeah, kind of like you said, I mean, we got some exciting players. I'm loving what I'm seeing from Nico Hoerner. I just love how he puts the ball in play, gets singles. I wish I'd seen more at the top of the lineup, but Christopher Morel has been a freaking electric lightning bolt. It's been fun seeing how some of these guys have developed, and some of the pitching performances we got this year is kind of promising, but it's promising and demoralizing all at the same time. But I mean, you ask many Cubs fans, I know Justin Thinger is a league member, is a big proponent of this. He's like, we enjoyed watching the 2015 Cubs way more than we watched the 2017 Cubs. Watching them kind of rise and watching some of those young
There's
guys.
No expectations.
With no expectation, just become and blossom into stars. And, being the underdog is a lot more fun than being the front runner. So yeah, it is fun. It can be a fun product to watch. I wish we were a little bit more relevant. I wish we seemed like we were trying to win ball games at points, but I think it's all for naught. I wish we could kind of flirt with a wild card to maybe see, have those conversations. Well, maybe if this, maybe if Killian, and maybe if this, but it doesn't seem like we can have those conversations until next year.
Yeah, and the bullpen's doing a good job, but I mean, and I knew it when the season started. We just don't have the starting pitching. I mean, we just don't, especially if Hendricks isn't being Hendricks. We had no shot in hell. I mean, we just don't have the starting pitching right now. The lineup could maybe get away with a little bit, but we'll see once it comes July. Willie Contreras, that's going to be a conversation to be had if we can either bulk up that farm system even more, or do they extend him? I don't know.
It sounds like they're not even negotiating, which is just demoralizing. The fact that you want it, not even going to negotiate with them, is very insulting. But I don't think the players here wanted to listen to us talk about the Cubs for the next 20 minutes. So let's change gears back to fantasy. And before we get into where our current standings are, we have some Horn Institute here. I want to go back to, and you guys are going to peek behind the curtain here a little bit. Here's the docs that Eric and I put together for these pods. There's some pretty in-depth documents here that we go over a lot of how we plan, how our podcasts are going to be laid out. Here was the one that we did from our draft recap show. And I want you guys to take a peek at our draft overpays section here, where Eric and I covered the biggest overpays from the draft. Here are the names on that list. Alex Wood for 15, Anthony Rizzo for 20, Darvish for 33, Yelich for 31, Suzuki for 25, Jonathan India for 23, Baду 13, Patrick Corbin 9, Lourdes Gurriel 16, Trent Grisham 28, Hunter Renfroe 21, Cabrian Hayes 37, Jorge Soler 21, Justin Turner 12, Cole Carrasco 11, Julio Rodriguez for 18, and Snell for 29. Now, there's obviously one outlier in there, Julio Rodriguez for 18. But other than that, holy cow, we nailed it. Pat ourselves on the back, Eric.
There we go. Not too bad. Not too bad.
We successfully called out those overpays in that draft for you guys who idiotically spent their money poorly, and you are paying for it to this day. Also wanted to revisit some of our bold takes from the original pod. I even did some color coordination in here. So you scroll down to our bold takes that we've kind of been keeping track of. Now, some of Kyle's bold takes have not come to fruition quite yet. My Buxton take looked good in the first month, but then Byron Buxton.
Doesn't it always look good in the first month?
somehow just became Byron Buxton, as he always does.
Yeah, who would have guessed?
The drop off in production. I mean, like I said, the argument has never really been the production when he's healthy. He's been kind of an elite fantasy asset, but for the last month, he must be nursing something, as he always is. But production's kind of gone down.
But let's not forget, he's also always had an awful OBP outside of last year. I mean, this is a dude that barely got on at a 300 clip in his career. I mean, he had that stretch last year where it light the world on fire, and that was about it. So I don't know.
Yeah. I said that Miami would have 4 pitchers inside the top 40. That one's not really looking good. I think they might have 3, but I was hoping for more out of Trevor Rodgers. Obviously, with my bold take of him being the top guy in the auction was a little bit off. I told you guys at the time I didn't really believe in it. I just wanted to plant my flag on somebody. Willy Adames over Wander Franco seems pretty good at this current time. Both have had injuries, so you can't really blame the injury bug. But Adames coming back now. Numbers already looking better for Adames than they do for Wander Franco. And we might have
296 OBP looking good.
We're gonna have a Wander Franco conversation in a little bit. Probably sooner. We're gonna have a Wander Franco conversation sooner in this pod than later, if you can catch my drift on what I'm saying when it comes to the order in which we're going to talk about some teams. DeGrom doesn't throw 80 innings in 2020. I mean, he's not off to the best start there, but he's got to get healthy and stay healthy. My bold take of Jordan Romano leading the league in saves looks good. The fact that he's going to lead the league in blown saves, he's got 2. I don't know if he'll lead the league in blown saves, but
no, he's not.
He's going to have a couple, and we'll see at the end of the year. I mean, he can have a rocky stretch. He's going to get plenty of save opportunities. He's going to get plenty of blown save opportunities. I predicted Freddie Freeman will not hit 30 home runs. That's looking pretty good. Jorge Mateo would be top 5 in steals. That looks great. Frank Schwindel will not be the Cubs first baseman in September. Shit, he was already designated for assignment once. They just had to recall him the next day. Julio Rodriguez over Cody Bellinger looks like a gold mine of a hit there for Kyle. Under 15 home runs for Adley Rutschman looks solid. Hey, how many home runs does Adley have so far, Eric?
0.
Oh, okay. Just wanted to hear you say that out loud. And then Eric was more correct on Mackenzie Gore than I was. I was lower on Mackenzie Gore, higher on McGill, and it's looking like Mackenzie Gore will be the better fantasy asset than Tyler McGill. But we'll see. There's still a lot of season left. And then my last bold take, which was Crimmy will not have a pitcher throw more than 180 innings. Eric said that's not really much of a bold take, considering the innings pitched of some of these guys, but that's looking like it's not really going to happen either. Eric, you want to go through some of your bold takes that you had here?
I kind of thought mine up on the fly. Like I said, Matt Olson will have a better year than Freddie Freeman. Matt Olson's not having a bad year, and either really, I mean, Freddie Freeman's really been killing it too. But so they're both doing pretty good. Urias is the best pitcher on the Dodgers. I guess if you're counting Gonsolin's start, I guess he would not be right now.
Tyler Anderson might be the best pitcher on the Dodgers so far.
I mean, so far, yeah, but I just meant kind of like overall, like he is the best pitcher on the Dodgers now. I think Walker Buehler's
kind of. I think that if they're Dodgers taking the mound tomorrow, who's the one person you would want pitching for the Dodgers?
Kershaw.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if he's healthy, it's Kershaw. He's never been bad ever in his career. He's never even had a down year whatsoever. So, and he's coming back too. So, Urias is having an absolutely fantastic year. He's still doing pretty well. Chris Bryant gets MVP votes. Obviously, he's been hurt, so he hasn't really been. I think he's only had 40 at bats to this point. Cease and Kopech are killing it. I still think Chad would have had an A+ draft with DeGrom and Tatis heading into next year because his team is already done for this year, rather than spending that same money on Renfroe and Darvish. Belly over Julio Rodriguez. Obviously, Rodriguez is starting to really kill with the steals, but Bellinger's still on pace for a 2020 year. So he's not doing bad. He's kind of bounced back a little bit. And then
the bar is just so high for him, considering he was runner-up MVP.
Oh, sure.
And he won an MVP.
Right, for sure, no doubt about it. And I think they were the exact same price, which is why we had that conversation. And then Gore under 4.5 ERA. That's looking good so far. Gore is on his way to winning Rookie of the Year right now. He is destroying it right now. So doing a good job.
All right, we've tooted our horn long enough. Let's get into these standings. So as we currently look, I took the lead for a minute last night, but unfortunately Special K snatched it back. And here we have our current standings. We got in first place Special K, in second place myself, third place Petey, fourth place Chris, fifth place Crimmy, sixth place Just a Blah Team Davey, 7th place, Jay. 8th is Justin. 9th is Bryce. 10th, Eddie. 11th is our co-commish, Eric. 12th
Hey.
is Chad. 13th is Corey. And 14th is Tyler in our Roto standings. What are some surprises that you see here from our Roto standings so far, Eric?
From the Roto ones, it's pretty interesting because I think we're seeing there's still so much closeness. I think if you go to season stats, obviously, and sometimes I look at this just for fun to see how close I am in certain categories. And you go to home runs, I mean, there's just a clog of teams. I mean, literally second place all the way to Crim's team, 8 home runs. I mean, that could theoretically be made up in a day.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that close on a lot of these categories. So I don't want to say anything is necessarily too surprising. If anything, something I learned last year was, I hate to say it, but it's still relatively early. Roto goes all the way to game 162. Head to head does not. So we're only a third of the way through the year, and we saw some big shifts in point standings last year. But I will say, kind of what I said post draft, there's about 4 or 5 teams that are really, really good. And then there's a tier drop off. And I think you're seeing that in the Roto. There's 4 teams right at 100 points or more. Crim's at 80. And then there's kind of that big kind of middling drop off where all those other teams are clogged.
Points.
Yeah. And me being one of those teams that are down there, but that's kind of what I said post draft. I was like, there's kind of 4 or 5 elite fantasy teams. And then there's everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely interesting to see kind of those tiers, like kind of those 4 top guys have kind of shuffled around. I haven't been there up until kind of these past week or two. For a while, it was like a 3-horse race, but I mean, I think I made up 20 to 30 points in 1 week. Granted, that was a few weeks ago. It's a little easier to do. The further we get along in the year, the harder it does get to make up points quickly for obvious reasons. But I mean, it could still be done. 1 good week, 1 solid pitching week, you get 8 quality starts, or something like that. Solid hitting weeks, ground can be made up quickly in Roto. I mean, I don't think a single team is out of it yet. I think there's certain teams that don't have much of a chance, but I mean, nobody's, it's baseball, anything can happen. My probably biggest surprise outside of your team, Eric, I had higher expectations for your team, but a slow starter as usual. I mean, Eric just has some trouble getting it up sometimes. So.
Yeah, that is true. What can I say?
So we might have to get you some help there, some medicated something.
Right.
But I think Peter's pitching staff is something that really caught me by surprise. He was touting it from the start, but he is he is actually second in the league in pitching. Somebody else has the top pitching staff in the league. Imagine that. But second pitching staff in the league by points right now. But I think that the argument could be made that he has the best pitching staff so far in the league based on the current guys that are on his roster and how they've pitched. So
and the funny thing is, real quick, Peter thinks we gave him a hard time after the draft, which is kind of true in terms of how many relievers he drafted. And he's that bulletin board material, right? We both had him as top 5 teams, I think, top 6 teams. I mean, we both liked Peter's team a lot. We just kind of questioned his draft strategy in a sense.
Yeah, and it was a draft strategy that did not work out for him last year, and now he's 3rd place in Roto, he's 1st place in head-to-head. Which let's flip over to the head-to-head rankings and see that we're going to see a little bit of a few differences here. There's 2 outliers here. The first outlier is the Beantown boys.
Yeah, whoa? Yeah, when you're comparing,
place. How is this motherfucker in 2nd place when he is in 9th place in Roto? Oh, you want to know why he's in 2nd place in Roto? Because the 2nd place Roto team is in 7th for head-to-head. That's me. So the luck that it takes to get matched up in the right weeks with the right players, it's like I get, matched up with Eddie and he throws like 9 quality starts in a week. And, I'd catch everybody in all their best weeks. And here I am outside the playoff picture as we speak in head-to-head, but 2nd place in Roto is very frustrating. And for Bryce to just sneak in here, he would have a 1st round bye if it or would he not? He would have a 1st round bye because he is in the American League. If the season ended today, if the circumstances happened that would cause the season to end today, he would have 1st round bye into the playoffs.
And you're completely right on matchups. It's funny because me and Crimson are obviously playing each other this week, and I looked at the matchup. I'm like, Crimson, you're 1st in runs. Guess who's 2nd? Me. You're 1st in home runs this week. Guess who's 2nd? Me. You're 1st in RBIs. Guess who's 2nd? Me. So
Yeah.
again, I'm getting screwed in my matchup this week when I would probably be beating most people 7-3. Crimson's beating me in almost every category. So
For
it
those of you
makes
who
it,
want to know how to access that, if you go to the scoring here,
yeah, it's very cool. I like looking at this.
you
All
go to
teams.
all teams here, and then here's the daily. So you got to switch over to the weekly for the period. And this tells you what each team has for the week. So if you want to sort by how many runs each team has, here's where Eric sees that he has 20 runs. The only person above him is the guy that's in his matchup.
Yeah.
RBIs, you can sort by all the different categories.
I'm there in everything. God.
Tyler's got 4 wins, quality starts. Right, I'm going against Tyler this week. He's got 4 wins, quality starts. I'm already dead in the water in that category.
Right.
So it's
a cool little thing.
Yeah, it's kind of a cool little feature here that Fantrax offers that nobody else seems to offer.
And if you want to back up the whole Bryce has been getting good matchups thing, and a lot of those matchups he wins, if you go back and look at some of those weeks and see who else was he ahead of, it was a lot of times just his opponent or maybe like 1 or 2 other people. And that's where head to head's also fun. But I mentioned this to you just a couple weeks ago. It's kind of crazy, or even just a week ago, it's kind of crazy how so far mostly the roto has matched up with the head to head. If you're a pretty good roto team, you're a pretty good head to head team. And obviously as we get closer to the end of the season and we get to that final picture, last year it was pretty much just Justin playing Cinderella story and head to head, and it screwed me. And I was like, God damn. But that's what's kind of cool about it, right?
It seems like with these tiers that we have this year, it seems like we just have like 2, 3, 4 tiers of teams. Yeah, maybe we have like 4. We have our like top 4 pack, and then we have like our middle of the pack, which stretches from 5 to like 10, and then we have like our kind of bottom 4 that don't really seem to have much of
the lotto teams,
a lot to play for unless drastic circumstances happen. But kind of the tiers that are created there kind of is showing that there's a lot less parity this year than there was last. Seemed like last year there was some that were in roto, some that were in head to head, and kind of vice versa. We don't see that as much this year. I mean, me and Bryce seem to be the only real outliers when it comes to that. So kind of interesting to see that. Any other remarks on our current head to head standings or roto standings, Eric?
Nothing too much. Like I said, it's going to be kind of curious, and there could just be so much change because, like I told you pre-show, even my team was at like 53 points a week ago, and then now I'm starting to hit, I'm starting to get rolling a little bit. I'm starting to catch up somewhat in some of these hitting categories, but we'll get to my team later. But it's crazy still how much things can change and how close some things are. Now, granted, there's some teams that are really far behind. Just for fun, if you look at something like RBIs, the top team, Phil with 318 is already, let's see, almost 100 RBIs off the bottom team. Mm-hmm. So, you're talking 100 RBIs and we're a third of the way through the season and you barely have 200 RBIs. That's a lot of ground to make up.
Mm-hmm. I would agree. All right, so we're going to do something a little bit different this time. Instead of talking about all the different trades in a vacuum, we're going to actually reformat this because what Fantrax is going to allow us to do is going to sort the trades by the trades that each team is going to do. So we're going to hop into our aggregate power rankings that we have. Eric has his power rankings, I have mine. And then as we're going, it creates kind of an aggregate ranking for everyone. Based on that, we're going to go through each team one by one. The order in which we go over the teams will be reverse of our power rankings. But before we go into each team, spoiler alert, number 14, Chad, congratulations.
He's going to love this.
We can sort this by the trades that they've made. So Chad's made 1 trade. So we can kind of talk about how the trades have impacted their team and kind of give them some grades for their trades. And we'll grade each team individually instead of giving each team 1 trade. So we start number 14 is going to be Chad. Chad is number 4 in our power rankings for myself, 14. But not for Eric. Eric actually has a different lowest man on the totem pole, which we will talk about in a little bit. But for now, we're going to talk about Chad's team. Chad's made 1 trade where he shipped out Grandal, Plesac, and Whit Merrifield, and he got back Brennan Rodgers, Eddie Rosario, Mitch Garver, and Kyle Hendricks. We don't have to get too far in depth because we've already talked about this trade. But looking back on this trade 2 months later, is there anything that kind of stands out to you about this trade, Eric?
Well, obviously, Hendricks has been not what we expected him to be, or at least not kind of returning to form. Garver in the same sense, not really great, but it's hard to, really this year, if you look at catchers, it is hard to find like a top 10 hitting catcher this year. There's been so much lack of production from that spot, but Garver hasn't been that good. Rosario's obviously been hurt. He's hasn't played a whole lot this year. So really in essence, Chad pretty much got screwed over in this trade outside of Brendan Rodgers, who's been pretty decent for him, okay-ish, I would say, pretty solid. But other
Did he
than
get
that,
screwed over though? Because how good have Merrifield, Plesac, and Grandal played?
do you still like that? I mean, what do you like in this trade? Do we even spend more time on it then? Because like, what is there
Yeah,
to like? I mean, really, on
I
either
think the
side.
biggest.
Then I mean, you could argue Whit Merrifield is still getting the steals. 7 steals isn't awful, but his on base percentage is almost non-startable. So you can almost look at this trade as a complete wash in terms of production. I don't know.
I actually looked it up. Whit Merrifield's actually hitting, got a 333 on base percentage over his last month. So I mean, things are getting better. He's still going to score a ton of runs hitting
Yeah.
first in that lineup. I mean, the thing about it is just the value that he got here. I mean, for Whit Merrifield, who was, 40 stolen base guy going into the year, I mean, the value you could have gotten for that could have been so much more than what he got here. And the fact that you didn't even get like anybody that you can really build around here, or that's really significant. Brendan Rodgers has been okay. I mean, he's got okay numbers, 6 home runs, 26 RBIs, 28 runs. Counting stats, they're okay. On base percentage is below average. I mean, he's cheap, but I mean, yeah, Eddie Rosario's been hurt. Garver's been okay. He's just always hurt. He just always nursing something. So, and but when he's healthy, he's fine. And Kyle Hendricks has been a nightmare. So, yeah, I mean, and Plesac, Grandal, they're okay. I mean, they're having okay. Grandal's not had a good year, but I mean, they're still assets. Just, yeah, nothing you can really point at here as something that you can really look at like, oh, well, at least he got this in the trade.
Yeah, nothing really on either side. Yeah, kind of interesting.
All right, I'll let you take the lead here on what you see from Chad's team, Eric.
Chad's team, like I said, I've said it kind of all year. He got off to that hot start, kind of sounding like deja vu from last year, but there's nothing, like I said, there's nothing that's scary on the offense right now. Cedric Mullins, you could argue at $32 at this point, it's been a little bit of an overpay. He does have the 11 steals, which you could argue, which is obviously worthwhile for that, but kind of struggling in terms of what he was able to do last year. But there's nothing on this offense that really scares you at all. He does have a nice guy in Dalton Varsho who's been playing a lot of outfield and catcher. I think he's really been splitting that 50-50, which is going to keep him catcher eligible, which is great for Chad. So that's been good. The thing with Chad's team, and I'll say this a bunch of times, is there is a bit of a future here if you look at some of these guys that he could keep, especially in the pitchers. I know he's been mentioning them a lot, but Flaherty, Glasnow, Baz, however you pronounce it, these are 3 easy keepers he's going to have next year. David Bednar, if he could get traded midseason. I mean, he's a Pittsburgh Pirate, right? As a closer. So Chad's rotation, I hate to say next year, but I'm sorry, buddy, it's going to turn into that very soon. Chad's rotation heading into next year, if he makes the right plays and doesn't screw it up with bad trades, could be very scary next year. Throwing Christian Javier, Flaherty, Glasnow. So that's something to look forward to. But in terms of what's on the field right now, it's just going to continue to dwindle. I mean, he got some hot starts, but I don't see a lot of these retaining.
Yeah, I actually was going to say the exact same thing. You kind of took the words out right out of my mouth, where it's like, yeah, I mean, the pitching staff is promising, but like, what scares you in this offense? Like, there's nothing that I can point to where I'm like, well, maybe if this happens, or maybe if that. I mean, like, I look at this offense, I go, like, I don't see it. I mean, I don't see how this offense can turn into a top like 8 offense. I mean, you can look at the pitching and see the path to being like maybe in the second half, but by that time it'll be too late. I mean, you'll be too buried by that time. I mean, maybe he hangs around long enough where maybe if this pitching staff becomes like a top 5 pitching staff, but I think even at its healthiest, I don't think this is one of the top 3 or 4 pitching staffs in the league, even if it was fully 100% healthy right now. You're not going to get Glass now until next year. And then, Jack Flaherty, not only does he have to get healthy, but he has to stay healthy. Shane Baz, like, yeah, everything looks good. He's pitching good in the minors, but I mean, I kind of gave him a little shit in the chat the other night because he was like, "Oh, surefire keeper," and Shane Baz. Not that I disagree, but I mean, a lot can happen. I mean, how many innings does he have in the majors so far? He has a total of 13 innings pitched in the majors. So I mean, are we sure that he's not just going to come up and have a 6 ERA? Who knows? He can kind of be anything. So we'll kind of see. I mean, I like some of the building blocks here. I don't love it, but I think he's got his work cut out for him. I think that if he pulls the right strings, maybe he can kind of build for next year. But it's going to take nothing short of a miracle for him to turn things around and even get back in the money this year.
And interestingly, his pitching's been his best part. His WHIP and ERA on Roto are 10 and 12. His wins quality starts is 11.5. And the unfortunate thing is, guess what? A lot of that is coming from Martin Perez and Michael Wacha, and guys like that who you can't even keep next year, which is kind of the crappy thing about that. But Darvish has obviously been good for him. Eflin's been pretty solid for him, but it kind of sucks that Perez and Wacha, who've largely been those guys, are now non-keepers. So trade those C players sooner than later, while another team could have them for the whole year, because by the time you reach July, those values are going to get much down.
Well, I mean, there's that, but I also don't expect Martin Perez and Michael Wacha to continue the pace that they're on so far. Neither one of them have a high strikeout rate guy. I mean, Michael Wacha's got 50 innings, only 33 strikeouts. So it's not like,
I mean, Perez was probably an all-star right now, though. I mean, if he keeps it up, even if he falls to a 2 ERA, 2.2, I mean, he's probably an all-star for sure.
For the record, Chad picked up Martin Perez on a Saturday. And the reason why I did is because the Rangers had gotten rained out twice that week. So technically they had never lineup locked. And I looked at that and I was like, man, I should just pick up Martin Perez before the start, before, he was kind of made a name for himself. But I was like, you know what? I think everybody in this league is going to give me all this shit and call it collusion if I make a claim for a guy right now. And they'll be like, what the fuck just happened? But because Chad did it, nobody batted an eye. And Martin Perez could have been on my squad. But as you can see by my number one pitching staff, don't really need him. So that is Chad's team. The outlook looks bleak. Number 14 in our power rankings. Eric has a different man in the 14, and it's actually not this guy. This guy is number 13 in our power rankings by Aggregate, and that's going to be Corey.
Yeah.
Has Corey made any trades so far?
I don't know.
He has made one. It was an off-season trade where he got Jose Abreu and Lindor, traded away Cronenworth and Jazz Chisholm. Right. Looking back on it, I mean, same reaction we had before. I think it was a trade that kind of had to happen. He wanted to get some offensive firepower. Jose Abreu, he's probably going to turn it around like he always does. Lindor, he's played very well, but they're two guys that are on higher B salaries. I don't know if they're going to be kept next year. And then Chisholm's been great for a $2 player. He's been a stud. Cronenworth has been a disappointment, but still productive. And we love the lineup flexibility. I know you do, Eric. Anything you want to say about this trade?
No, nothing really. I think, like you said, you're getting Lindor, Jazz Chisholm. You could see why it made sense for both teams at the time, especially with him trying to shed some salary before the draft.
All righty, then let's jump into Dethrone Kyle's team. This is a team that, let's see here. Where did we have him in our power rankings? I had him 13th. You had him 12th. So we have him pretty low here. It's another team where there's so many holes here. And it seems like there's some moves that need to be made here. I think Corey's kind of staying pat. He kind of likes what he sees in a lot of places here. He's waiting for some guys that haven't performed to turn some things around. Urias has kind of pitched better lately than he did to start the year. The strikeout numbers aren't there, but the ERA is actually better than what I expected it to be. It seems like he's strung together a few good starts here lately. I mean, Trevor Rodgers has been, a guy that you spent $25 on in the auction just to be a complete bust. I mean, a 5.8 ERA, 1.55 whip. I mean, I believed in the guy. I liked him. So, I mean, I don't really blame him here, but it's tough to spend $25 on a guy and just to be on your bench that you can't even play. I mean, that's a killer. Brandon Lowe's injury hurt. But other than that, I mean, there's not a lot you can point to on this team and again, kind of like Chad's where like, oh, well, if these things happen, things can really look up. I don't really see that. The pitching staff has upside and it can be good. Maybe if McCullers comes back and is all right. But I mean, even if the pitching staff reaches its peak, it's maybe like a top 6 or 7 pitching staff, and the offense just doesn't really have a whole lot to build around. What do you see here, Eric?
I see a lot of the same things. We knew he was going to have a little bit of a tough job coming in, but the team wasn't awful, and he had some building pieces by it too. His ERA and WHIP, again, roto-wise, are pretty good. Max Fried's been fantastic. He looks like he'll be a keeper again on a C contract. Jordan Montgomery has been fantastic. Julio Urias at $11. That should be an easy keeper next year. And obviously,
ERA, 5th in WHIP.
What's up?
He's 4th in ERA, 5th in WHIP.
Yeah, I mean, just absolutely killing it. So Josh Hader, again, same thing, finally gave up a couple runs the other day. Otherwise, his ERA would have damn near been spotless. So he's got these things to build upon. Castillo's kind of bounced back a little bit this year as well with the amount of innings he's pitched. Again, it's kind of the same thing with Chad. It's just there's no offense. The good thing is, again, I'm already looking ahead a little bit. Connor Joe right now is looking like a stud $2 player. Hopefully he can keep that going. The RBIs are really low, but that's what happens.
For a few weeks, he has not produced lately.
Right, but that's what happens when you're
in the last 30 days.
Hitting leadoff. Oh my God, your last 30 days.
One home run, 3 RBIs. I mean, just a month over the last month. I'm just,
Right. But we're at the 1/3 point. We're at the 1/3 point of the season, right? I don't know. Arozarena obviously looks like a surefire guy. Lindor's bounced back, right? I mean, 45 RBIs right now, on pace for 20 steals, on pace for close to 27, 28 home runs. He's done a really, really good job. So he took a gamble on that contract, and it looks like it's paid off so far. But you're right. It just seems like it's still missing a couple big boomers in that lineup. Abreu's been okay, not awful, but he's not even on pace for hardly 20 home runs this year. So it just seems like it's missing a couple big bats. The pitching's actually not bad, and I think the pitching should, for the most part, hold up with who he has. But again, just lack of hitting. There's just no scary pieces.
Yeah, and even Arozarena has kind of turned things around over the last month. He's got 11 runs, 5 homers, 12 RBIs, and I was looking at the wrong guy. 11 homers, 5. Hold up, 11 runs, 5 homers, 19 RBIs, and 6 stolen bases over the last month with the 3.73 ERA.
That almost sounds like a player of the month.
Yeah, I mean, it's a solid month for him. But even looking at all that, I mean, he's still a $22 B contract. So you're going to keep him for 27 next year? Are you going to keep Jose Abreu for 34? I mean, he might retire after this year. I mean,
if Arozarena
41 next year.
If Arozarena averages, okay, let's times everything by 3, 18 homers, 75 RBIs, or 84 actually, and then 30 steals, you wouldn't keep that?
For 27?
30 steals, and you're getting 20 home runs?
If he keeps this up, then perhaps he's got to raise the on base percentage a little bit. If he plays the rest of the year the way he's played last month, then yeah. But I'm just saying these salaries are getting kind of big, and I tend to not like to keep the middle of the range players that have low floors. I mean, we've seen Arozarena be a not productive player for over the course of a couple months, and he's kind of broken back out. Maybe he's kind of broken through that sophomore slump, and maybe this is the player he'll actually be. But we've seen kind of the player that he is. And I don't like spending $30 on guys that I know can bust.
Right.
That's just kind of my opinion on it. I mean, same thing. It's just not the I like to kind of go more of a stars and scrubs method with it. When it comes to my team, I don't, kind of for safety, or if it's like if I got a $5 player, if he busts so well, it doesn't really hurt me that much. But that's just me. All right, any closing thoughts here on Corey's team?
No, like I said, I think he's got some promising players to look out for. Like I said, Connor Joe, even G-Man Choi's had a pretty decent season. So he can look at that. Garrett Cooper has been pretty solid for him. Look at guys that you can maybe keep. But we'll see. We'll see.
Let me ask you this. Corey is he is only 7 games out of a playoff spot. What would have to go right for him to sneak in to the head-to-head playoffs?
I think he's gonna have to make. I don't think he can hold fort with this offense for the whole season. I just don't. So I think he needs to trade.
What moves do you have to make?
He's gonna have to trade a pitcher, a Montgomery, dare say Castillo or Urias, and try to get some type of bat back. And hopefully, is McCullers out the whole year? No, he's not.
No, he should be back. I think he started his throwing program. Yeah,
if he can make that move in the next few weeks, where he can trade one of those pitchers and get a solid bat back, and have everything kind of almost like set sail from there, then he's got a shot at making the playoffs for sure.
Yeah. Wow. May 17th was last update on Brandon Lowe, and we still haven't heard anything about him.
Yeah.
Yeah, those back injuries are tough. Chris Bryant seeing that firsthand. All right, so we're going to go to our next team, number 12 in the aggregate power rankings, which is Eric's 14th last team. But it is not mine. I am a believer in this team.
You were after the draft too. You
are not, and that team is T-Pain. Tyler's team made a couple moves so far. Let's kind of analyze some of the trades that he's made.
He's made a lot since our last show. Yeah, I think he's made 4.
Has. I mean, so he started with that big trade with myself in the offseason that kind of neither one of us won because of so many moving parts with so many guys that got hurt. But he was able to turn a lot of those pieces into other pieces. So, I mean, he traded for DeGrom, Seeger, Pablo Lopez, and Sonny Gray. And he doesn't even have a single one of those guys left on his team, because he traded with Bryce, where he traded away Lopez and Mountcastle, got Minaya and Gallo back. Gallo has not been great, but Manaya's been okay. Let's see. Minaya here has got a 3.5 ERA, 1.08 whip, plenty of wins quality starts. The strikeouts are there, 71 strikeouts in 69 innings. Pablo Lopez has been very good, though. What do you make about this trade here that he made with Bryce?
In terms of Tyler's perspective, I think he did all right on it. Obviously Gallo's been awful. Mountcastle's actually been pretty solid. So I think overall you could probably say that Bryce won this trade, but obviously Bryce traded Lopez, so we'll get into that later. But in terms of pure, did Tyler do well in this trade? I think right now you'd take Lopez and Mountcastle over Gallo and Manea. So I'd have to say Tyler lost this trade at least to this point.
Mountcastle's been sneaky good. I
Yeah.
didn't think he was going to be that good, especially with being a right-handed hitter, moving the walls back in Baltimore. 8 home runs, 25 RBIs, 20 runs scored, 2 stolen bases, and a 302 on base percentage. It's not great, but I mean, it's serviceable. I mean,
Right.
when we talk about all these teams that need hitting, and have these guys in their lineups that don't really, produce, Mountcastle is a guy that would produce for a lot of teams.
Right. And like I said, Gallo's just been not good. But in terms of Manea, he's looking like an easy keeper for next year. So it's not like Tyler did awful here, but it's a straight 2 for 2, right? Which two would you rather have? I think you'd go Lopez Mountcastle.
I think I would too. I mean, looking at what they are, but I also have injury concerns with Pablo Lopez. He's never played a full season. I worry about that shoulder a little bit. There's no reason to worry about it right now, but I'm just going to put a little footnote there that he's never pitched a full season. He's had some shoulder and arm problems. I think that at some point in Pablo Lopez's career, he's going to get Tommy John, but we'll see.
Who doesn't, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Next, we have Gallegos for Nestor Cortez. This has got to be an A, right?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing too, and I told Crimmy I wasn't sure if he should do this one, but it was a tough one. Presley just got hurt, so he felt like he needed a closer. And Gallegos has not been bad. I mean, he's on pace for about 20 plus saves, but
Not the closer.
Cortez has just been absolutely dynamite. I mean, you want to talk about one of the stories of the baseball season so far with the way the Yankees have been playing. Nestor Cortez has been an absolute stud. And I remember making that comment a week in when Garcia and then Cortez got traded. I said, I think Cortez will have a better year than Luis Garcia. And Cortez has just been, I mean, he might be the All-Star game starter. I mean, he's been that good. And that's those risks you take early in the season. It's just like fantasy football. Someone does good that first week. Do you sell high on him? Krim sold high, got a pretty good closer in return, but Cortez has kept it up. So I think Tyler has to win this one right now.
Oh yeah, I mean it's just a matter of whether it's an A or it's an A plus, and I feel like it's pretty much got to be an A plus. I don't think that Gallegos is going to have the job. I don't think he does have the job anymore. I think he kind of splits time, and I think by the end of the year it'll just be Helsley alone. By the way they've pitched, and they'll use Gallegos a little bit more high leverage, some multi-inning, kind of how he's been used in the past and where he's thrived. Right. I think that Helsley just pitched so well. I think he'll kind of have the job. Yeah, I mean, no arguments there. I think it's A or A plus. Next trade was a 3-team trade. Shout out, first 3-team trade, only 3-team trade executed in the league, where he sent out Mondesi and Luke Voit, got back Jesus Sanchez and Brandon Marsh. He flipped Jesus Sanchez later on, actually a few days ago in another deal. But I kind of like the return that he got here, all things considered, considering what happened to Mondesi, and Luke Voit has not produced either. So, I mean, it has to be another win here. I'd give it probably like a B plus.
I agree. And Sanchez, the thing with Sanchez though, is I think you got the most production out of him in those first couple weeks than anyone else did. But
I don't even know if I even got any of that production. I think he was probably on my bench for most of that.
Like true, but he started off so hot and he's really struggled lately. He's really a non-starter at this point. But Brandon Marsh has been obviously really, really good. I mean, on base percentage isn't great, but the RBIs are there. He's got a few steals. So again, I'm not seeing a ton of production at all in this trade. So overall, I would still say Tyler won it with the 2 names he got back, but still really not a whole lot of production.
Yeah, and I mean, Brandon Marsh, I think he's a $4 a contract or something.
Right, exactly.
So I mean, he's got some key potential, and he's got some potential to be a 5-category producer if he turns out on base percentage around hitting in one of the best lineups in the league. Next, he traded Dylan Carlson and Sonny Gray away for Cabrian Hayes and Aaron Hicks. I'm not an Aaron Hicks fan. Dylan Carlson is yet to produce for a major league ball club yet. And so that's kind of a wash. So really it's just Sonny Gray for Cabrian Hayes.
Oh man, it's crazy to think too, because Cabrian Hayes could so be a keeper if that crazy stuff didn't happen in the auction, because he's on pace. Again, he's not a home run guy, but he's on pace to score a decent amount of runs. He's on pace to steal about 20 bags. He's got a really good on base percentage. And if he was your normal $6-7 A player, I think he'd be a keeper. But at this point, Tyler can't. There's no chance. Tyler can't keep him. So it's like it's a win now player, and Tyler's not winning now. So I kind of look at this as a kind of a D or an F for Tyler. I mean, I don't, right?
But I mean, is Sonny Gray a win now player either? So I mean, it's kind of a why. It's just like a C.
It's just a wash.
But, I mean, Cabrian Hayes, I actually think he has his hard hit hard hit ball data is actually really good. I think he's got some home run regression coming his way.
I
Problem
mean,
is
I'd
that
argue Sonny Gray's been pretty solid, but
if the home runs do increase, it doesn't even mean the RBIs and the runs are going to increase, because that lineup's just going to be so bad that, it's tough to say that is he going to have 80 runs or RBIs this year, Cabrian Hayes? I don't know. He could hit
no.
25, or he could hit 20 home runs the rest of the way and still only finish with 75 RBIs. So
Sure.
I mean, I like Cabrian Hayes as a player, but I don't really. And maybe he's like a 2020 guy, and then he's really valuable. But I still don't think you keep him at that salary.
No.
Then most recently, he flipped Jesus Sanchez and Corey Seager for John Gray, Tim Anderson, and Tyler Anderson. This is a deal that Tyler, I don't think, could pass up. And I really like the value that he got here in these players. I think I'd give Tyler like an A- for this trade. I think that Jesus Sanchez is borderline not really startable. Given a little bit of power, we kind of talked about him, but on base percentage is a drag. Corey Seager is a guy who, he's healthy versus Tim Anderson, but I mean, Corey Seager, he's not going to give you any stolen bases. He's a good hitter. I mean, if you need offense, 11 home runs, 25 RBIs, and his on base percentage actually really low.
That's what's scary this year.
291. But typically in years past, he's been just a professional hitter, Corey Seager. But outside the Dodgers lineup, we've seen him take a hit. And he's getting back Tim Anderson, who's probably like a top 5 shortstop in the game. Just got to get him healthy in a few weeks. Tyler Anderson is probably one of the best C pitchers that we've seen this year, just putting up really good numbers. He is a 2.59 ERA and a sub-1 whip, on top of 53 strikeouts and 55 innings. So just a really solid C contract pitcher. And John Gray, who's I don't know what his contract is off the top of my head. We'll see it in a sec, but I think that John Gray is a quality A contract as well. And now that he's outside of Colorado, I think he's
been awful.
He's been bad, but he doesn't need to be good right now.
There you go. I don't hate this really too much for Jay either, because I don't know. Yes, Tyler Anderson's been great this year. So in terms of this year, I think right now getting Anderson and Anderson back, you like that. Overall, though, I would still take the keeper of Seeger over the keeper of Anderson. I think Seeger's on base percentage right now is an outlier. His whole career indicates he's a great on base percentage guy. Granted, he's been playing in LA in that lineup, but we'll see. His power numbers really look to be there this year. He looks to hit the most home runs ever in his career. He's on pace for 30. If more guys can get on in front of him, that'd be great. But I don't know. I think I'm taking Seeger overall than Anderson over the next couple, but the fact that he was able to get Tyler Anderson as well, with how well he's been pitching, I think right now Tyler, probably wins this deal. So I'd say probably B plus B for Tyler.
I couldn't disagree more. Well, I mean, you're looking at, you're saying you like Corey Seager more because of his on base percentage. Freaking Tim Anderson's got a 393 on base percentage this year. 330
this year. I'm talking as a track record.
Before.
I'm talking as like a track record in their careers. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but you just know that Tim Anderson's going to give you the steals, and he's going to be a high batting average guy. He's going to score a ton of runs. He's shown a little bit of pop this year. I don't think Tim Anderson's going to hit 30 home runs. But if Tim Anderson is a 23 home run, 30 stolen,
he's never done that though. He's never hit. I think he's hit 20 home runs once in his career.
Let's see here. He's never. He won 20, 18, and then 10 in the shortened season.
The thing with Tim Anderson is he's always going to give you the high average, but he does not walk at all. So like his average is almost going to be what his on base percentage is for the most part.
And then I think it's $20 versus Seeger, who is he's going to be 25 next year. Tim Anderson will be versus versus Seeger, who will be $36 next year. You still going to stick with that statement?
Well, yeah. I mean, if Seager's on pace to hit 30 home runs and if he gets that on base percentage back up to 360, 370, you're telling me a 30 home run, 370 on base percentage guy with 75, 80 runs wouldn't be worth it? I would think so.
$36.
You got to remember next year.
Bases from a shortstop.
Kyle, you got to remember next year's draft, and you probably know better than anyone, is going to be one of those very interesting ones because it's the year before I almost want to call it the reset. It's the year before. So I think there's going to be a lot of different strategies heading into next year's draft, and I don't think money is going. I mean, we're not going to get into that too much now, but it's going to be a different one.
No, it is. But like at the same time, everybody's salary, you're talking about all these players that are going to be available the following year, but all those players' salaries will go up by 5 this year. So if you're keeping let's say 10 of the players that you were keeping as A players last year and B players now, that's an additional $50 that you don't have this year.
But
so
here's
the budget's going to be a little bit tighter.
The thing with next year, though, I think what's going to happen is a lot of people are aware of after year 3, there's going to be the reset where a lot of great players come back in. I think a lot of teams next year are going to spend stupid money on players just knowing they're not going to keep them just to throw them back in for the crazy draft next year. I mean, I think that could very well happen, but we'll see.
The cheap player is going to be so valuable after next year.
Yes, they will be.
All right. So let's get into what Tyler's team actually looks like now. You have no faith in this team, and I don't understand why you feel that way. I look at Tyler's offense, and there's a lot of pieces that I like in here. There's a lot of upside plays. We talked about what Cabrian Hayes' bad at ball data could be, and what he could be as a player. Nolan Gorman, we know his ceiling's pretty high. Pete Alonso's been great. Tyler Stevenson's played well. Juan Yepez, I like him. Jeremy Pena's played well. Joey Gallo, not played well, but we know what he could be. Grichuk playing in Colorado, counting stats are okay. On base percentage has been not killing him. 313 doesn't hurt you as much as it used to in years past. I expect some positive regression coming for Grichuk. Sterling Marte has been a stud. Counting stats are great, hitting in that great Mets lineup. He's hitting third in the Mets lineup. You know you're going to get the stolen bases from him. Owen Miller is hitting like fourth or fifth in the Cleveland lineup. So that's why he's got 29 runs scored, 26 RBIs. And then he's got Tim Anderson, Max Muncy, and Seiya Suzuki all waiting in the wings to get healthy in the next coming weeks. I think the offense is fine. And then you look at the upside in the pitching staff, where he's got Nestor Cortez. Johnny Cueto, I don't love, but as a fifth starting pitcher, he's fine. So you got Cortez, Edward Cabrera, upside, Manaya, good solid floor, Jordan Romano, best closer in the game, Tyler Anderson pitching well, and just a lot of upside arms that he's got here, Winder, McGill, Mize, that are kind of waiting in the wings to provide reinforcements. This isn't the best offense. This isn't the best pitching staff, but this is not the 14th worst team in the league.
I just don't see where you think you had him after the draft, I think in the top, what did you have him? You had him as a top 6 team, I believe. I just don't, there's definitely pieces you can look at, but the offense wise, again, there's Pete Alonso that scares you. Okay. Sterling Marte scares you. And then after that, you got a lot of underperformers. Jeremy Pena has been great so far, granted. Nolan Gorman was claimed off waiver, so he's already a C. But Gallo has not shown anything this year. And they're at the point where the Yankees aren't going to care. They'll go to the next man up eventually. They're not going to let that continue to happen. I mean, his numbers have been Bellinger-esque of last year, right? But what else on the offense are you looking at? Seiya Suzuki's hurt. Tim Anderson's hurt. Max Muncy.
Seiya Suzuki is going to be back next week. Muncy is going to be back. Muncy's already back. Tim Anderson's going to be back in 3 weeks.
And their numbers are almost identical. And they both. I love Suzuki. I hope he's great, right? But let's do that whole last 30 days on them. Max Muncy, again, in that Dodgers lineup, is about to get chances taken away because he's been that bad. Seiya Suzuki has not gotten off to anywhere close to that first 2-week surge that he had. What else in this offense? Marte, Alonso, and Jeremy Pena right now. And then everything else is just.
I think everybody chips in, and there's guys that I don't know. I just like I like Juan Yepez. He's played very well since he's got up. Randall Grichuk. I think that Randall Grichuk is still going to be a 30 home run guy, a 90 RBI guy, and probably an 80 run score kind of guy by year's end. Owen Miller is probably going to be over 80 runs, over 80 RBIs, and that might be taking him a little bit lightly. And then you got, we talked about Brandon Marsh and what he's got 27 RBIs. He could slot him into the lineup if he wanted to. And I just don't see who's the guy that's really like, oh, well, he's really got to fill that gap. You'd say it's Joey Gallo, but he's got, Brandon Marsh and Seiya Suzuki that are waiting in the wings to take those spots.
Dude, if he did not have Pete Alonso on this team, I'd be very curious, like as a replacement player, whoever else you could put in there. He's got one dude else over 30 RBIs right now. One guy.
If you look at what he's been so far, it's no secret. You look at the standings where he's at in the Roto standings. He's last. He's got 41 points. Where is he at in home runs? He is second to last in home runs. So yeah, you're right. Without Pete Alonso, he'd be down there with Corey.
Yeah. Yeah, so, and even the RBI count, you're not looking at any of those guys. How many of them are on pace for 80? Marte, Alonso. That's it. You got a lot of just middling. I hate to use that buzzword, blah guys. I don't know. Jeremy Pena has been great. Who knows if he keeps it up? We're not really getting any steals outside of Marte and Hayes, which maybe you can get away with that. Tim Anderson's banged up. But if we take a turn to the pitching staff, I don't think Cueto keeps us up all year. It's fun watching him pitch, but I just don't think he does. Cortez, we'll see if he keeps it up all year. That's still a question mark, right? Manaea and Quantrill are about your most sure bet things. And Quantrill's done it for 1 year. Yeah. So I don't know. Romano's been absolutely fantastic, but this is the main reason I ding Tyler so much is because he did the same thing Peter did. and he drafted Scott Barlow on the Royals, who's going to get, maybe he's on pace for 15 saves. I
Mhm.
mean, who's going to trade for Scott Barlow right now and give up a
Yeah,
valuable piece?
yeah,
As great as he's been, who's going to do it?
yeah.
I know he got Tyler Anderson, but Colin Posh, okay, what's he doing for you? He's just got all these arms that really aren't doing anything for him, and
So
none of
here's the
them are.
thing, like if you look at it like as a full, I mean, his number one is Cortez, which isn't the best ace in the league, but he's playing like it.
Yeah,
His number two is probably Mania. Okay, that's fine. It's not great. His number three is probably Quan.
Quantrill.
Well, it's McGill. And then you got four, you got Quantrill, you got Tim Anderson, you got Edward Cabrera, and these guys have all shown pretty good upside as players. So no, I don't think that this is a top rotation in the league. It's really not top heavy at all. But I think that there's arms in here that are quality arms that he can turn to for
I
innings.
want to
That
know your
are
fascination
not.
with McGill. I want to know what you've seen from McGill, where this dude's his number three. I
Well,
don't understand that one.
I think that he got lit up in his last start before leaving for injury. So it's one of
But
those
even the
things
year
where
before, I mean, this is all small sample sizes, I suppose. But 89 innings last year, a 4.5 ERA. Like
he's got
I
pretty
don't.
good stuff. I think he's got like a fastball. It's close to 100. He's got some good
Yeah,
off speed stuff.
I
Pitching.
like Quantrill a lot more. I think Quantrill at $8 is a steal right now, because he was good last year and he's doing pretty good this year. But the thing with Quantrill, and this is again a problem with Tyler's team. Look at the case. I mean, you can almost argue Quantrill. Could you say this is borderline?
Those are brutal strikeout numbers.
He's almost unstartable if that ERA or WHIP go any higher, right? With the Ks
Yeah.
he's giving you.
Well, at a 1.2 whip, that's not helping you, and the strikeouts are hurting you if he's in your
A
lineup.
lot.
Getting half of a strikeout per inning.
Yeah.
36 strikeouts in 60 innings. Yeah, I mean, strikeouts are definitely would be a concern, but I mean, Tyler Anderson gets over a strikeout an inning. Cortez gets over a strikeout an inning. Mania
Does
gets
Tyler Anderson stay in the
over a
rotation
strikeout
all
an
year
inning.
though? I mean, with Kershaw's, who's getting out when Kershaw comes back in? I mean, I don't know. I don't know if he stays in all year. He hasn't
He
started
might
all
not.
year. He started in the pen.
Yeah, he might
So
not. So yeah, interesting to see. I just think that there's names here. I just don't think it's bad. I just think that he has the names here to remain competitive. I mean, Tyler, I think I only beat Tyler. Well, I think I'm playing him right now, but I think at this current time he's beating me because his rotation's pitching very well and he's got some reinforcements coming. And I just don't think this team is bad. I don't see this as the four. I think there's plenty of teams that are worse than this and have worse outlooks on what they could be this year. I mean,
yeah,
there's teams that we're about to talk about here in the next two or three teams that I think that their upside is much less than what Tyler could be this year. And we'll start with one of those teams, which is Eddie's team. Eddie's team is number 11 in our rankings. I don't think we need to waste our time going to the trades because we know that he hasn't made any.
I have missed. We both have him as. Sorry, I have him as. You have him as 11. I have him as 11, right? So.
Yep, that is correct.
Awesome. Cool.
So Eddie's team. Here's the thing about Eddie's team is it always, we talk about this every year and it's frustrating because like Eddie's team has like these good pieces. There's so many pieces at this team where I'm like, people would pay up for these pieces. I mean, if he was just involved and if he, kind of was working the trade market, we know Peter would back up the Brinks truck for Luis Robert, and he could get some of those young quality arms, I would think. And I don't know, Peter's kind of stingy, so it's kind of tough to say, but
Yeah.
Peter said that he was going to pay out the ass for Luis Robert. I mean, Buxton, that I would pay a king's ransom for Buxton. Trevor Story's pitched very well. Bobby Witt is a very good, very promising player. He's gotten a lot from Anthony Rizzo this year. Jesse Winker for a $1 player. We know that guys have made a lot of offers for Jesse Winker for what he's done the last year or two. Jordan Alvarez has been killing it. There's guys here, and then he's got Riley Green waiting in the wings here. India on the IL, and he's going to be a quality producer. Like, there's guys that you can build around in this offense, quality players, and even the pitching staff. I mean, the pitching is obviously a weakness. But he's got a few guys. Mackenzie Gore is a $1 A. Zach Gallen as a $16 B. Merrill Kelly, Blake Snell, some high upside arms here where I don't hate the pieces, but there's just moves that needed to be made here. You got no closer. You got some gaps in the offense here. And I guess not really too many gaps in the offense. Keeping McNeil for 10, I think is still indefensible. And I think the rotation could be much improved. And I think there's guys that have been willing to trade pitching that you could have traded some of these bench hitters for that would have put you in a much better spot than you are now.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm if I'm Eddie right now, I am calling, getting Corey's number, I'm getting Chris's number, and I'm getting Peter's number, and I have Robert and Kopech, and I'm like, send me what you got. I mean, right. I mean, those are two of his most valuable assets at this point.
Mhm.
But the thing with Eddie's team, I think you're right.
We should be on
And
the phone with Chad getting some of those C contracts, even just for cheap, like those Waka and Martin Perez that would be helping him right now. And this team has enough potential to make a run for it.
And this is why I like his team more than Tyler's, because I think when you look at the keepers, Will Smith keeper, Bobby Witt, I know the on base percentage isn't there, but he's on pace for a 2020 season.
Yeah.
Trevor Story, same thing, 2020 season, and he's just now starting to get going. Guess who else? Luis Robert, when he's actually playing full time, is on pace for a 2020 season. Yordan Alvarez is almost on pace for 50 home runs, so that he's just absolutely killing it. But there's all these guys. Jonathan India hasn't even played for him yet, so that's another one. But you're right, the staff is where you really got some question marks. Gore and Kopech, if they are as advertised, could easily be your number 1 and 2. I don't think you have a problem there. Zach Gallen, I've always been a huge fan of. So again, these are all keeper pieces that I think he has moving forward next year, where you're right, he's got a lot of value. Gallen, Gore, Kopech, all those guys on offense that are 20 home runs, 20 steals, and we're not even counting your $9 Byron Buxton, who, guess what? He's on pace if we're a third of the way through, almost for 40 home runs. So no steals though. So that 40-40 player you were touting not too long ago. But I don't know. It's one of those things where I see a lot of ability here for Eddie's team to be better, but it's just one of those things where there is some holes in certain areas. Obviously, he doesn't have a single closer. He's basically punted the whole saves category, which is fine. That's the direction he's winning. But that's literally right off bat. You're looking at 13 points that you can immediately erase in a roto, because, and not only that, he's not. It's almost like you have to punt it the rest of the way, because he's not even close. I mean, he's just, it's done. So he's really got to make sure he's getting high strikeout guys, and he doesn't necessarily have that. He's got a lot of guys that aren't even averaging a K an inning right now. But you got to hope for that. But Eddie's team, like you said, promise, but not all the way there.
The thing about it is, like, yeah, I guess you can punt saves and it's a viable strategy, but the problem with punting saves is that you rely on those closers for low whip and low ERA. So like the strikeouts, I don't worry about as much, because you're going to get so much more volume by replacing closers with starters. You're going to get so many more innings pitched per week that you can afford to have lower strikeout numbers, because you'll just have 15 more innings than the next guy for however many more starts that you'll get than the next guy. So you just hoping that those 15 innings, you get an additional 10 strikeouts. So, I mean, like, there's that. So I don't really worry as much about the strikeout rate, but yeah, I mean, like the ERA and the whip are kind of be the biggest concerns there. Where's he at in strikeouts, actually, considering he's punted, pretty much punted saves? He is pretty low down. So he is, what's that, like 9th? Something like that.
Corbin, and like you said, it's just so tough because he's got Corbin in there with a 7 ERA and a 1.8 whip. He's got Blake Snell in there with a 6 ERA. Zach Plesac in there, who doesn't average a K an inning, almost at a 5 ERA.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of getting better pitching, because I think his offense could hang around a little bit. Yeah. But his pitching, he's got 2 great pitchers. 3, I would even argue 3 great pitchers, but there's 3 guys in his lineup that are dragging that down completely.
Yeah, you got to use the word great loosely there, but I mean, 3 good pitchers.
I mean, who's not been great? Has Kopech been great? Has Gore been great?
In 51 innings, he's been good. He's been
great. What do you mean good? A 1.94? That's great.
He's averaging exactly a strikeout an inning.
Yeah.
And I mean, but you're not getting volume. So he's only got 4 wins quality starts because he hasn't gone deep into games yet. Or is he? How many is he going? Like 6 innings into starts? I don't know. I don't watch the
10 starts. He's averaging right at 5 innings a start. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'm not going to call him. I mean, he's got 4 wins quality starts. And
has Gore not been great? Great, right? I mean, you can't say not
wins
great.
Quality starts. He's been very good, I would say.
48 innings, 57 Ks, a 1.5 ERA in his first ever major league action, and you're going to say he's been good?
Yeah, but in 48 innings. I mean,
well, sure, but
Monster's got like 80 innings already this year. It's like,
well, yeah, Gore got called up like what, in May? I don't know.
Yeah, okay. So, all right. In the sample size that we have, yes, they've been great in the sample size that we have. Sure.
Which is all we got right now, right?
I will forfeit that to you, but I'm not going to call them great pitchers because I'm not going to project them that's what they are, because they are, they are for this month. I'll point to sample size and say, well, if this continues, then this is what they could be. But sure. If
I will say the Kopech one's in.
If they continue this and they each pitch 150 innings, then yes, they are great.
Right. I
but
will say this on Kopech. It is interesting because strikeout an inning is not bad by any means. But when you look at Kopech last year, granted he came out of the pen, so there's a little bit of a different mentality. Kopech's almost had as many innings as he had last year, and he was at 100 strikeouts.
yeah.
So we'll see. You could be right. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to save your stuff for longer
Sure.
when you starter versus reliever. You can bring your stuff for 30 pitches when you're a reliever and strike more guys out. You
100%.
want to reduce that contact, but when you're a starter, you kind of got to force more weak contact versus kind of try and mow everybody down. All right, brings us to number 10 in our power rankings, which is Justin. Angels in the Trout field. Justin's made a few moves, so let's take a look at some of the moves that Justin's made. Starting with a move that he made in February. Do you want to go over that one, or that was off season?
Yeah, that was way long ago. Yeah.
All right, so let's start with the one in March.
Oh man, he's made a lot.
Yeah, he's made quite a few.
Oh, hold on, never mind.
I don't know if we want to waste time by going through the off. So let's go through the offseason ones quickly because it's kind of fun to look at.
Sure.
Still. A little quickly. So he traded away Kevin Gausman, Will Smith, got back Bregman, Kikichi, Iglesias, and Abreu. He then turned Abreu and Bregman into other pieces. So he's kind of had a lot of moving pieces. Giving up Kevin Gausman stinks, but he did get Iglesias, and then he got a lot of value for Abreu and Bregman. So it's kind of hard to say what grade this gets. I think he probably still gets like a C- for this just because of how good Gausman's been for the price that he is. Will Smith, he couldn't have traded him at a better time because a week later they signed Kenley Jansen and he was a zero. He wasn't kept. Is there anything to say about this? Or you just want to kind of go over quickly when we talked about what he got for Abreu and
I'll say quickly, I think Justin did really good on this trade because I think Iglesias is one of the best closers right now with 11 saves. So he's on pace for about a 30 save season. Bregman's been struggling. But I don't know. It's tough. We'll see if he's a keeper. But overall, like you said, I think the Gausman kind of is about balance.
Bregman for Trout. So.
Right, exactly. So we'll have to turn into that one. But yeah, no, overall, not too bad.
Yeah, I think his grade has to get a little bit better. I think it's probably more in the B plus range. If you look at what he ended up turning Abreu and Bregman into, he turned Abreu into Jazz Chisholm, and then he turned Bregman into Mike Trout. There were some other pieces in there, but I mean, you look at those pieces, those are pretty good trades. Traded away McCutchen, got Soto. I'm gonna skip over the other one. Trade away McCutchen, got Greg Soto. That's an A+. McCutchen hasn't really been good, and Soto's been the closer, and he's closed a lot of games. Been very good. Traded away Bieber and Bregman and got Mike Trout. How do you think this affected his team? Do you think that this is a win for him?
It's tough to say right now because obviously you do have to worry about the Trout injury concerns. But I mean, I don't know when was this trade made? May. So I mean, he's literally gotten. The past 30 days, Trout's not been awful. 7 home runs, 14 RBIs. Obviously, we know he went through that really bad stretch the last 15 days or so. But Shane Bieber has been very, very good. I mean, he's always been good, and I think people were like freaking out about his velocity or something in regards to that. But yeah, Shane Bieber's been fantastic this year. He's proven to be an ace right now with 291, more than a strikeout an inning right now. Obviously he needs to stay healthy the last couple of years. We got to make sure we get there. But I think Bregman bounces back. I think Bregman's always proven to be a really, really solid player. So overall, I actually initially like this one more for Krim because all it takes is one injury. Trout's done. Krim still has Bieber and Bregman, and Justin has an injured Mike Trout. But granted, it is Mike Trout though. So I mean, you have to. But I'm looking at it. Krim got 2 All-Stars. Justin got 1. I don't know.
I don't think Bregman's an all-star at this point. But
he's like a 4-time all-star.
I mean, he's not an all-star like what he is right now. I mean, yeah, sure, he's a former all-star, but he's a former all-star, not an all-star. I guess
Trout isn't either.
If you ask Justin that Justin has absolutely zero regrets about trading for the best player in all of baseball. And I don't blame him. And I think that this is a very fair trade. I think it's probably, I don't know. I guess I'd probably give it like a C+ for Justin. The only problem here is that Justin really needs pitching, and Justin's kind of dead in the water until he finds it. Because unless Justin figures out his pitching staff, he's going to get Kershaw back. He's going to get Lance Lynn back. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But
why do you trade Shane Bieber then?
Yeah, well, even if when he does get those 2 guys back, it's still not great. So I know that's why it's kind of. You got Mike Trout. Congrats, nice job. It's fun to root for, and it did help your offense. But you're hemorrhaging pitching right now, so it's kind of tough. Next trade, he traded away Ozuna, Crawford, Desclafani, got back Justin Turner, Steven Kwan, Jorge Mateo.
He got some steals.
He has climbed up the ranks in steals thanks to Jorge Mateo. Mateo has 13 steals now on the year. Steven Kwan has not produced since this trade, since the first few weeks of the year. On base percentage still looks decent, but he's really just not really producing much outside of that. And Justin Turner had a good, like that first week after I traded him, we had a lot of back and forth because Justin Turner that week he had like 2 or 3 homers, like 12 RBIs in that week stretch. And then since then he's back to kind of being blah Justin Turner. He typically gets better when the weather gets warmer. But
And I was crazy for not keeping him, remember?
Well, for $1 though. I mean, he's 14 now for $1, but you had to make the decision that you made. You chose Chris Taylor over him, and I mean that's kind of a wash at this point. So
a wash.
What do you think of this trade?
Oh my God. It's interesting because I think you get, I mean, if Justin's looking purely for steals, then he gets it, right? Quan has 3 steals, which isn't great. His on base percentage is pretty solid though, but obviously, I mean, what are you starting him for at that point? Runs? I don't know. I just don't think you can start Quan at this point.
He's
right
not
now.
Starting him anymore.
Yeah, with that production. Now, Mateo on the other end, he was always known in the minors as a guy that's going to steal a ton of bags. That's really all he's been known for. He's not going to hit home runs. He's not really going to drive in runs. So from a pure stolen base perspective, you couldn't have gone any better. I remember in the show a couple years ago, he had like 95 speed. So the dude can burn, but steals are going to be there. So if that's what you needed, you got it. On the other end, Brandon Crawford, it's tough because I've never been a huge Brandon Crawford guy. I think last year was kind of an anomaly. He's never really been that hitter, and he's kind of proving that again this year that he's just not that guy. He's just not. Outside of those first couple of years of his career when he kind of in those World Series years. Descalfani, same thing. Never been a huge fan of Descalfani. Again, had a couple stretch where he did
Tony
all right.
Disco. Show some respect to Tony Disco.
Yeah, I've never been a huge fan of this. So honestly, overall, I would say Justin wins this trade because I think Turner's a quality guy when he gets it around, and Mateo's going to get the steals. Ozuna, that's going to be the X factor. Can Ozuna really get that bat going? Because he's been a very good bat in the past, but this year not doing it.
Yeah, Ozuna is definitely kind of a wild card here. On base percentage has been pretty low. He's barreling a lot of balls. He's hitting the ball hard. I like what I've seen from him so far. He's kind of still got to get hot and turn it around. But I mean, 10 home runs, plenty of RBIs. I mean, 23 isn't great so far, but I expect that to continue on to improve. On base percentage is going to get better as the weather gets warmer. I would expect. Yeah, I mean, I kind of view this as like a Turner for Ozuna because kind of like a wash, and then as Crawford and Desclafani for Quan and Mateo. Crawford, I kind of agree with you. I think there's some regression coming Crawford's way, but he's a $1 A. And if Crawford goes for 25 home runs and 80 RBIs as a $1 A player, I think that's still a serviceable keeper at that point, depending on who your other keepers are. And I think that's valuable to a lot of people. Desclafani, he's a good stash because he doesn't take up a roster spot, and he's an A contract as well. But for Justin, I think it's kind of worked out for him. Yeah, he's able to climb up in steals. He's gotten a little bit of RBIs from Justin Turner. I don't think he's missed any of the guys that he kind of gave away here. So I think he kind of gets a B here. Next, we made another trade. AJ Pollock for Matthew Liberatore. Not really much to say here. I think both are bench players. And then most recently, traded away Jazz Chisholm and Kike Hernandez for Clayton Kershaw and Nico Horner. What do you make of this trade?
I really liked it for Krem.
What about for Justin? That's who we're talking about here.
Yeah, we're talking about Justin. I like Justin. He needed pitching, so I guess this is where he's going to get from it. The only concern with this is the Dodgers are going to make the playoffs. I think we know this. Obviously, they haven't been doing, I mean, they're still doing good, but they haven't maybe been as nasty as we thought they would be, kind of like the Yankees are doing. I just worry somewhat about not the fact that they're going to limit Kershaw, but they're not going to let him go 6-7 innings in games that they're winning 6-7-0. I mean, they're just not. I think I could see a lot of 5-6 inning games from Kershaw moving forward. They're going to really want to save him because this is not a July, August, September team. This is an October team, and they want Kershaw to be there ready in October because when Kershaw is on the mound, there's been years where Verlander's had a bad year. So Kershaw has never had a bad year. So as long as he is on the mound, I don't see any reason why he would not be your number one starter heading into that postseason. And that's where they want him to be, there in the postseason. So I don't hate this for Justin. I do think he needed it. But in terms of what he needed, yes, good move, needed pitching bad. But in terms of what he sent away, he got the steals back in Mateo. He's going to be losing it right back in Jazz Chisholm and losing probably a lot. I don't know. We'll get to that side later.
Jazz Chisholm has 9 steals. Nico Horner has 6. So maybe maybe not as much as we
How,
think.
okay, but Nico Horner's not going to hit 10 home runs in a season, and Jazz already has.
He's got 3 so far. He's on pace for 9.
Okay, and Jazz is on pace for 29.
Yeah. I
And
agree.
we know Nico's not going to hit many home runs. We know he's not. Like, come on.
Yeah, I didn't love this trade. I think the biggest thing about this trade is that Jazz Chisholm's $2. A $2
Oh
Jazz
man.
Chisholm, which will be $7 next year. I mean, that's a very valuable asset. I mean, there's not many guys that are more valuable when it comes to like production per dollar than what you're going to get out of Jazz Chisholm. So to kind of give that up, and to, as you said, the innings are going to be a concern for Kershaw. I'm concerned that I don't know if Kershaw will ever be healthy again. I shouldn't say that, but I just, yeah, he's got to it's one of those guys where he's got to get healthy and he's got to stay healthy. He's battled a lot of back injuries. Those tend to linger around and kind of come back. And so, I mean, if you told me that Clayton Kershaw's only going to pitch 50 innings for the end of the year, like that wouldn't surprise me. And I think he's expecting to get 100 innings out of him the rest of the year. And I just don't think that that's going to happen. So I'm a little concerned about what he's going to get, how much production he's going to get out of Kershaw. Yeah, I get you filling a need, and you go, well, if I'm going to get 80% of Jazz Chisholm and Nico Horner, and Kike Hernandez is just kind of a whatever kind of player, then I can see how it fits for him. But I just think
Are you
that
starting Nico Horner in a lineup though? I mean, really, are you?
I think in Justin's lineup you would, but
Because
not
I mean, he's on pace for
not
less
many
than 10
lineups.
home runs, less than 50 RBIs. He's on pace to score less than 40 runs.
Yeah. Did
I mean,
Nico spend some time on IL?
a little. I mean, a little bit of time. I mean, I think he's got 40 games played, but I mean, yeah, he'd be a 20 steal guy, but he's never been a super big on base guy either. So I don't really know if he's much of a starter. He kind of reminds me of a
He's
Madrigal.
developing as a player, though. I mean, you
Sure.
look
Oh,
at what he's done
sure.
in his career. I mean, I think he's taking the steps. I think he's developing. I think he's getting
Yes.
better. I think his power is going to come around. His on base is going to come around, and
I
we've
think
seen
I'm,
him
yeah,
grind
from
out
a
at
pure
bats.
fantasy
Yeah,
perspective. Yes.
yeah, I
Yep.
agree. But I don't think you can look at what he's done so far in the majors as what he's going to be, because he is so young and he's still figuring it out. And I think that he is looking to take the next step. And we've seen some quality steps that have been taken from him. He's very exciting to watch.
Mhm.
But yeah, it looks like he's just starting second baseman right now. So it's interesting to
Especially
see.
when we get Xander next year, he's going to be moving over to second base. Yeah.
Now it's tough. It's tough to criticize Justin's offense when you have Mike Trout, Mookie Betts as your 2 outfielders, and Paul Goldschmidt. I got to eat my craw on Paul Goldschmidt, but he's been like a freaking top 5 hitter so far. Essentially, he's certainly top 3 first baseman in the league so far in the production that he's gotten out of Paul Goldschmidt. But like after those 3, I mean, what are we really looking at here? Like, what are the
It's
other
tough.
players that you're like, this guy isn't replaceable? Like every single one of these guys are all replaceable, from the
It,
rest of his team.
it is. And, it's one of those things too, where again, like the Mateo is only starting because of the steals. That on base percentage is awful. Wandy Diaz has never been a big home run guy. You're only starting him because of the on base percentage. So you're almost like counteracting some guys. I don't
Yeah,
think Jock Peterson hits on pace for 35 home runs. Who knows? He
he's
might.
not going to play every day.
You're right, exactly. So who knows? He might. I mean, he's been a kind of a nice little story for him so far. But in terms of home runs, he's got a lot of guys that aren't even on pace for like 15. I mean, we got Justin Turner, Nico Horner, Christopher Morel obviously hasn't played much, but Wandy
Hey,
Diaz,
Eric,
Jorge. Yeah,
Justin is second in the league in homers.
is it going to hold?
I would say odds are against it.
I mean, again, we're 1/3 of the way through. We're trying to outlook, right? I mean, you
He's
think
got the number 3 offense in the league right now. He's second in homers. He is, I believe, second in RBIs and second in runs scored.
I mean, even you yourself said after looking at 2 names, you're looking at this like, what the heck,
Yeah.
right? I don't know. Does Cronenworth really get 99 RBIs this year? Does Justin Turner's still on pace for 90 RBIs, which is crazy to me.
And that's the value of hitting in that lineup.
Exactly, right? Exactly. So it's tough because I think he's trying to balance certain guys and putting them in the lineup, and it's costing him in other areas. But so far, it's worked out. Obviously, he acquired Trout, which was a big move for him. But like you said, when you look at the pitching, does Gonsolin hold up? Dakota Hudson has a C contract. He's killing him in strikeouts right now. Ranger Suarez wasn't as advertised. Iglesias has gotten the saves. His ERA is high, but as long as I guess you're getting them saves with Soto and Iglesias. But I'm just not a huge fan of the rotation. Rasmussen's been good. I mean, really, Kyle, look at that rotation and tell me, dang, that's I would have really been worried about that guy heading into the year.
So if we think that the offense is going to regress a little bit, And then we look at the pitching staff. And as I said earlier, I kind of mentioned, I was like, he can get Kershaw and Lance Lynn back. And then what? I mean, like, even then, I mean, you're still okay, Kershaw, Lynn, Gonsolin. If Gonsolin keeps up this pace, and yeah, you might be cooking with a little bit something, and Kershaw and Lance Lynn go back to like the players that they are, and they're healthy the rest of the year. I mean, yeah, sure. Then you're like, okay, well, maybe Drew Rasmussen's my 4, and then Suarez is my 5, or Kikichi or Hudson or whoever else. And, you know, maybe Killian gets called back up and he's productive. We've already seen the drop off for Bruce Zimmerman, but there's a lot of ifs there. And I just don't think that the upside is even there. I think that he needs 1 or 2 more upside arms in order to kind of make a run at it. He needs to sustain the offense. And then he needs some upside arms to kind of come in here and kind of take over and be something for his pitching staff. But I just don't really, I don't really see the upside here from the pitching staff. I think it can be good, but I think we're looking at like a pitching staff that even fully healthy is still only in like the 6 to 8 range of pitching staffs amongst what we see in the league. I mean, if his offense continues to be what it is, he's got to get more production out of some of these guys here. He's got to figure out what he's doing at utility. I don't think that Yandy Diaz is a starter. I think that maybe he could turn Mateo into something for somebody that needs more stolen bases, perhaps. I don't know. But
What about Mookie though? I mean, people thought he was crazy for keeping Mookie at 46. I said, who else are you going to get? I mean, Mookie's killing it right now too.
yeah, so I mean, if the offense sustains what it's doing so far, if, you know, the stars and scrubs method works, and then he's like an average pitching staff, then that's good enough to make a run and be a head-to-head relevant team. But I don't think you're going to be roto relevant with that. So maybe that's kind of the same strategy he took last year, where he was kind of runner up in head-to-head. But you know,
Well, that's my thing too. Is
second place head-to-head isn't any good.
And it's one of those things too. Like if we're looking at that trade purely from Justin's perspective, if his offense is already that good, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why not have kept Bregman, who you know's got that all-star caliber bat, and then had Shane Bieber in your rotation?
Yeah.
I mean, and I know people got a little worried about the velocity thing. Maybe that's what turned off on him. I don't know, but I think personally, from a pure trade perspective, from Justin's pure team perspective, his team to me looks better with Shane Bieber in there, and then having Bregman as your utility or whatever it might be, however he would have shifted that around instead of starting a Yandy Diaz.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, there's a lot to that, and I don't kind of disagree with what you're saying there. Is that this team like clearly needs an ace and it needs some pitching help.
Shane Bieber,
I think also the on base percentage is a big thing with Mike Trout. That I mean, you can't pass up opportunity to get Michael Trout.
He's not getting any steals anymore though. That and I'm not saying that's a huge worry for me, but I think there was this conversation of like Acuna and Trout were the same price on Krim's team. Who does he hold? Who does he not hold? Acuna's come back from injury and he's still stealing bags like a menace. I think the Angels have pretty much told Trout, do not steal. Because how else do you describe his steals?
Still like 90th percentile in sprint speed.
Yeah, 100%. He's an athlete. And that's not saying he can't steal. But if you go back to his rookie year when he stole 50 bags, it's not like at the age of 29 in your prime, you just lost it. It's clear that they're telling him, do not steal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, come on, do not steal.
And I don't blame him.
I don't blame him either. But
that, you know, when you got calf injuries and quad injuries and hamstring injuries and all those, it's not worth it to go full out sprinting on an extra bag.
So who's more valuable then right now? Is Mike Trout really more valuable than Mookie Betts? I mean, Mookie Betts, and some people were like, oh, you don't keep him at 46. Mookie Betts. That's what I'm saying. That's why didn't you keep Bregman, who's still putting an okay offensive numbers up, and then had Shane Bieber in your rotation? And this is not digging on Trout at all. I'm just saying from his construction of his roster, I just wasn't quite seeing that.
I think if each player remains healthy, Mike Trout will produce more than Mookie Betts will produce the rest of the year. Hard to argue now because Mookie Betts has just produced in every category more than Trout has. I think that Trout is just still leaps and bounds the best hitter in baseball. And I'm not going to bet against him.
Sure.
All right. Next, number 9 in our power rankings, who shows up as the number 12 in my power rankings.
Oh, wow.
But Eric here is a little bit higher on him at number 7. The perfect place for him, really, number 7, because we have just a blah team. Davey boy here. Let's turn to his transactions that he's made so far and take a look under the hood at some of the decisions that he's made. He's only made one trade this year. Wow.
Yeah, unlike him. Yeah.
He's usually more active than that. I think he's kind of he wants to stick it to us. I know he wants to prove that his team is not blah. But the only trade he made was last week or a week or so ago when he traded away. Oh, he's made two trades. Those are two trades there. So he traded away Adley Rutschman for Craig Kimbrell, because Adley was not kept by him, and Craig
Right.
Kimbrell is closing on a good salary for the Dodgers. And he traded away O'Neal Cruz for or traded away Steven Strasburg for O'Neal Cruz. Who's the better $8 contract between Strasburg and O'Neal Cruz?
I would honestly, I would say Strasburg, right? I mean, when granted, the last time he was on the field was a couple of years ago, but this is a guy that still had 250 strikeouts. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you want to talk about ace stuff, and again, we'll get to Phil's team when we get to Phil's team and what he needs, but I don't know. Everyone is hyping up O'Neal Cruz, hasn't really come up yet. Played a little bit, true. In terms of uh, Dave's team, you got to love it for him because he's a Pirates fan. So I understand the move for him. But it's interesting because when we get to his rotation a little bit, I think he would have preferred to have Strasburg the rest of the way out.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to say. We don't see eye to eye on O'Neal Cruz. I'm starting to lose a little bit of faith in him. I have to admit, the fact he's not called up now and the batting average seems to be pretty low, but I don't think what he can be as a player, there's a lot of upside there. But I mean, you could argue that there's way more upside what we've seen from Strasburg. I just think that Strasburg just hasn't proven that he can stay healthy ever since that postseason run. I think their arm is just damaged. It's just used goods at this point. I think that O'Neal Cruz is more valuable at $8 than Strasburg is at $8, but that's just me. I think that value wise, I think that Dave got the better end of this deal just because of it. But when you look at team need, I think that Strasburg might be a valuable piece, more valuable piece this year than O'Neal Cruz will be this year. But who knows when they're going to call up O'Neal Cruz? Should have been called up a month ago. So it's really tough to say. It's really hard to make of what this trade is going to be. But I mean, I'll just give it a C+ for Dave. It's pretty much a wash, but I prefer to have O'Neal Cruz for 8 over Strasburg for 8.
Sure, yeah.
All right, let's take a look at his team and what we have here. Why don't you tell me what you see here?
I mean, really, I mean, it's kind of funny because if you look at the roto, if you look at the head-to-head, he's very much just in the middle of the pack, and I think that's about what we kind of thought for him. Arenado's kind of cooled down off from his MVP chanting starts. I think his teammate Goldschmidt has leaps and bounds past him, but Altuve's been good. The RBI is really weird with Altuve, but he's really got a lot of. William Contreras has been amazing so far in the small sample size in Atlanta, and you got to think he sticks around for until that cools down. But really, if you look at all these guys, look at that. Bellinger, okay, steals, home runs, RBIs. Happ has been doing good. Altuve, Bell, he's got a lot of offense doing pretty good. Meadows is back. I don't know what's going on with Meadows in terms of the power production right now. Yelich is, I don't want to say is back, but he's going to be close to a 2020 player again. You'd like to see more of that with the price he paid, because right now that's definitely an overpay at 31. But overall, pretty good. I think well-balanced offense, honestly. He has had to bench Javier Baez, who's been awful. Charlie Blackmon's not been very good. Kyle Lewis, surprise, is hurt. But then you get to the rotation. This is where I wonder, should he have kept Strasburg? Because I think this is the same thing that happened to Dave last year. He had this weird random confidence in these kind of middle of the ground pitchers, and he kind of rolled with it and thought it would take him to the promised land, and it didn't. So he's got Bumgarner pitching okay, not the case. Gibson, not really that great. Hauser, not really that great. Wainwright's been his best pitcher. So Adam Wainwright has been your best pitcher until Max Scherzer comes back. And that's where it makes you wonder, well, you kind of have a maybe. I know we're thinking differently here with Strasburg. Maybe you have an ace coming back in 2 weeks. And right now, your best pitcher you're rolling out is Wainwright and Joe Musgrove. Now, Musgrove's been amazing, and maybe he keeps that up, but you're going to trust a 40-year-old after that? Scherzer, a 37-year-old after that? So it's tough. I don't think the rotation holds up. I have actually more confidence in his lineup than his rotation.
I'll give you a second to back that up. Who's been his best pitcher so far this year?
Musgrove.
Okay. Just so
I said Musgrove. Right. Yeah.
I fair let you. Okay. There's not a lot that I like when I look at this. I think the on base percentage is really low. I think that he's getting some steal, he's getting some power in some places. This is just a lineup that just doesn't scare me. I just think that there's not a ton of upside here. which is tough to say because he's got Bellinger and Yelich, who are both, MVP runner-ups in their time, but I don't view this as like a top 5 offense. I think it's just maybe like in the 6-7 range. I just don't really see it that way. I think that he's got some good production from a few players, Arenado, Altuve, and Bell's bringing some on base percentage.
Suarez.
And but Suarez, Suarez has he's not going to finish the year with 329 on base percent. It's going to be lower than that. The dude strikes out. He's leading the league in strikeouts. It's not even close. 31 runs scored and 32 RBIs. Those will come down when as his on base percentage comes down. Suarez is not going to finish the year with 90 runs scored, 90 RBIs, and 30 runs scored. Yeah, you can put that on the bold takes, but he is not going to continue this pace. JP Crawford has been the same player for his entire career, and he's not. We've already seen him slow down. I don't even know if he's playing every day anymore, based on what these counting stats show of 5 home runs, 15 RBIs. I feel like he had like 4 home runs and 12 RBIs and like a 2-week span, and then he's basically done nothing since. 2 steals, okay, the on base percentage is okay, but there's not a whole lot I like seeing here. I mean, he needs like O'Neal Cruz to get called up ASAP. He needs Kyle Lewis to stay healthy so that he doesn't have to play Kiner Falefa and Suarez and JP Crawford in the lineup. And then he needs like Yelich to produce like he's capable of, Bellinger to produce like he's capable of, Meadows to produce like he's capable of. But like he needs so much to go right in order to be a contender. Like, sure, if everything goes right and Bellinger plays like an MVP and Suarez continues his pace of what he's doing and Yelich goes back to being an MVP and Meadows figures it out after all this and Happ continues the pace that he's on.
A lot of what ifs.
There's so many ifs here. There's so many things that have to go right. And it's way more likely that things go wrong than they go right for this team. He's going to be middle of the pack. His offense isn't bad. I shouldn't say that it's like that I don't like it. It's just like, it's very blah. It's very middle of the pack. And I just don't think that the stars are going to align because so much has to go right in order for Dave's team to be a contender. And you already talked about how the rotation just isn't good enough. So his offense, I don't think, is a top offense. And his pitching, we know this pitching is not going to be a top pitching staff. And yeah, maybe if Scherzer was healthy, we'd look at it a little bit differently. If Scherzer's your 1 and Musgrove is your 2 and Wainwright's your 3, and you have Robertson's a closer, and that's
it. Because that's the thing with Williams being in there is Williams isn't a closer, and that I don't know the move there. I don't know the mindset behind that other than to keep your ERA and WHIP down. Maybe I don't know.
But the WHIP isn't even helping. He's got 1.2.
Right. And Robertson's on pace for 20 saves, maybe. Chapman might have lost his job. So is saves already becoming a punt category?
And I think Robertson's probably maybe in the same situation as Bednar. Don't think the Cubs hang on to Robertson. The longer the season goes along, the more we're not clearly not contenders. I don't think we hang on to David Robertson.
And it's not like Robertson's. I mean, if there's going to be a closer that might regress, I hate to say it, Cubs fans, but it might be the 37-year-old Robertson who's not really, I don't know, been a closer ever in his entire career. Outside of a couple of years there in Chicago, but I don't know. He might see some regression. He hasn't been a closer, I think, since 2017.
Yeah. So and this pitching has no depth either. So you're starting Devin Williams because you don't trust German Marquez. I don't know who this Smeltzer guy is. I've never even heard of him, but okay, he's got 28 innings, 20 strikeouts, and good ERA and WHIP. But obviously, you didn't trust him enough to put him in your lineup. Hyun-Jin Ryu is close. Is he not close? Where is he at? Expected to miss multiple weeks. Okay. He's not close. Bender, he's not in the role anymore and he's hurt. And Chapman's not in the role anymore and he's hurt. So like
a lot going wrong.
There's a lot going on wrong and there's nothing really waiting in the wings here. And I just think that there's a lot that needs to happen. I mean, his offense everything needs to go right and he needs to find pitching. I just don't see it here. That's why I have Dave number 12 in my power rankings, way lower than you do at 7.
And I hate to say this, and that's why I do like his lineup, and I do think it's going to continue to do well. But my thing, and I hate to say the looking towards next year thing already, but I'm already looking. There's not a whole lot of guys where I can point to that are surefire keepers for him right now. Even B contracts, you can argue a Musgrove. He probably holds on to a Scherzer, but are you holding on to Meadows at that price? Yelich at that price? Arenado, you might. I don't know. He's slacking on some of the keepers for next year. We'll see.
All right, I'm gonna criticize you here a little bit. Who's got a better lineup, Eddie or Dave?
Ooh, I'd have to go back and look. Let's see. Let me quickly, Eddie or Dave. I would say overall, I think Dave has a better balanced lineup.
Okay. Because I mean, I feel like the pitching's pretty much a wash, and we talked about some of the guys that we
Yeah.
like from Eddie's pitching staff and some of the performances that he's got, and so I'd
Yeah.
almost say that Eddie almost has a better pitching staff, and I would say that Eddie's lineup is better with more upside than what we've seen here than what we've seen in this.
Yeah, it's
I don't know.
close.
I guess I keep saying upside, but I don't know. I just don't think that some of these guys are what they are and what they've proven to be. It seems like these teams got all the veterans. You know, it's hard to look at Nolan Arenado and say, oh, he doesn't have upside. Well, you know, he's got a freaking 38 home run, 110 RBI seasons behind him. And
Right.
you know, same thing with Bellinger and Yelich. We know what they could be. So I shouldn't say upside as much as I do. I just don't think that what these guys are in their careers right now is what he expects them to be or needs them to be.
And the thing with Bellinger and Yelich too is I think they're definitely startable because they're both on pace for 2020 seasons, but no, they are not playing how good they could play. But that doesn't mean that they've been bad for him either. I mean, yeah, the Bellinger OBP is bad, but he's still on pace for about a 2020 year, which I think is startable regardless of OBP. So same with Yelich. So
yeah, I'd have to agree. But I just don't really see. There is a path, but man, that path is
a lot of
uphill at an 89-degree angle to get Dave to the promised land. So we're going to go to our number 8 team here, and that is going to be the Beantown Boys. I'm going to pull up his lineup, but we know that we're going to have to pull up the trade screen because we know that. They like
too many games at Colorado, drinking, having a good time, slinging some trades.
Bryce likes to wheel and deal. We got to scroll all the way down. Do they all fit on one page? Okay, yeah, they all fit on one page.
Yeah.
He's made plenty of trades. Made some trades in the offseason, February, March. He traded away Nola, got Castillo and Evaldi.
Gotta like that.
Do we?
Nola's been so.
Good. Nola's been
so is Castillo and Evaldi have been great too.
I think it's a win-win. Yeah, I think Evaldi's a lot cheaper and he's been very good. So yeah, I mean, I like it there. Not a whole lot to say there. We talked about the trade from Tyler's perspective, and what do you know? Willie Adames just homered. What do you see here from Bryce's perspective? So you still like it, him getting
yeah, we kind of broke this one down, I guess, from both sides. Yeah, I would say I would still like the Lopez and the Mountcastle over the Manaea and Gallo for sure. Lopez obviously he's not on his team anymore, which we'll get to in a little bit, but from that trade from that point, yeah, I think you got to like it for Bryce.
All right, then he traded away Castillo, got Whit Merrifield. Then he traded away Whit Merrifield and turned that into Daniel Bard and Mondesi. So it's kind of tough. I mean, look, Castillo's been decently good. I mean, he's kind of shown kind of what he did last year. A little bit of a slow start, but once he kind of finds his groove, once he kind of gets fully healthy, I think he's been very solid. What's he done this year so far? What do his numbers look like? He is 3.5 ERA, 1.12 WHIP, and 34 strikeouts, 33 innings. He's been good. I'd say he's been okay. He's been serviceable. When Merrifield has not been good, he's been pretty bad. It's kind of hurt you in ways that then he's helped you. He kind of flipped him over to me. So I think that trade is kind of okay. I think what he got for Whit Merrifield, it kind of, when you look at the result of everything of having to trade away, trading for Whit Merrifield, then trading him away to get Mondesi, who got hurt, sucks. But Bard has still been useful for him, and I think he's probably going to get a D for it because he traded away a lot of useful pieces in Merrifield, March, and Castillo, and all you really have to show for it is Daniel Bard.
Right.
So, I think you kind of have to get a D there. Looking back at this massive blockbuster here, what do you make of what you see here?
I think this was a rough one for Bryce. McMahon's kind of cooled down a bit. He hasn't been fantastic after that big start.
He hasn't been unplayable. He's just not that good.
Yeah, he's just been okay. I mean, he's not. Well, if the home runs jump back up to last year's totals, if he puts up the stat line he had last year, sure, that's a good number. Really, right now, in terms of who's producing for Bryce and that 4-player swap he got, it's really Kyle Tucker. And that's it. Kyle Tucker's been amazing. He's been really good. He's on pace for 30 home runs, 100 RBIs, blah, 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 all that. The runs are a little low. He's on pace for 30 steals. So Kyle Tucker was a big get for Bryce. Eduardo Rodriguez, I've never been. Yeah, exactly. I've never been a fan of Eduardo Rodriguez. So overall, Grandal, McMahon, Tucker, Rodriguez. Tucker's been the big get here. While on the other side, I think Montas and Albies have been really good there. So I think this was tough one for Bryce.
Yeah, Montas has been solid. Albies hasn't been great. He's kind of got a little bit of an inflated contract for what he's been producing this year. And Miles Straw is, you know what he is. He's producing. Yeah, we criticized this trade at the time. It was basically he only got Kyle Tucker back for even looking back further on it, and he gave away 4 useful pieces. Like that is not an even trade. But he wanted he wanted Kyle Tucker. He was obsessed with Kyle Tucker, only to trade him like 2 weeks later. So it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense for what we had here. He also traded away Nicky Lopez and Pablo Lopez to get CJ Cron and Alex Wood, who he also flipped Alex Wood later in the year. What do you flip Alex Wood for? For Soler to you.
Yes.
So basically he got a lot of power. He traded basically Pablo Lopez for CJ Cron and Jorge Soler. That's not bad.
No, not at all. In fact, Cron's been fantastic. I think he's right now an easy keeper, but Lopez has also been fantastic. So it's one of those things where if he needed pitching, that's kind of a tough get. But
We'll
right now,
in a minute.
Yeah, but like right now, I mean, if Cron, Alex Wood got in return, or if Soler got in return, I think Bryce overall did pretty good there, especially with Nicky Lopez kind of being a non-factor. But this trade did happen 2 weeks in. Again, Krim in 2 instances now kind of sold high. Cron, Nestor Cortez at the time got pieces back, and obviously Lopez has been solid for him.
Yeah. Then we go to this inconclusive. He traded away Mikolas and Correa and got back DeGrom. Kind of inconclusive because he also flipped DeGrom later. Oh wait, where is this DeGrom trade?
No, he traded DeGrom.
Oh, he traded away DeGrom and got back. Oh, that's right. He got back Correa and Mikolas. Mikolas, I don't like. I think he's fine. I mean, he's 3 ERA, 1.08 whip. That's great. That's what he is. He's only got
never a strikeout guy though. So if that ERA jumps or if that whip jumps at all, he's, again, hate to say it, non-startable.
Yeah, and then Correa has not been good. He's produced a little bit in spurts, but 3 homers, 16 RBIs, and he's been
banged
COVID
up.
IL. He's been hurt. He's been every which way. He's got plenty of at bats. He's still got 143 at bats, but still hasn't produced any of those at bats.
The thing is, we've kind of talked about this before. If you bring up Correa's numbers fast, in terms of fantasy, has he ever been fantasy great outside of that 2017 year, 2016 year, you can argue, but he doesn't steal bases. He doesn't score really 80, 90 runs ever. He's kind of an interesting one. And I think that's why he was so cheap last year at $11.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why he was $11. I think last year he did play well. I mean,
yes, and that's why.
Homers, 92 RBIs, 104 runs scored, and a solid on base percentage, 332, 66. But that's hitting in a solid Astros lineup. Then you take him out of that lineup and you subtract all his counting stats and drop him down 10, 20%. And you take him, turn him into a 26 homer guy, maybe drop those down a few. And yeah, if he's like a 22 home run guy with 80 runs, 80 RBIs, and no stolen bases, that's not really a fantasy asset. I mean, that's Brandon Crawford.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I mean, totally get what you're saying here. So yeah, I was not a fan of the deal at the time. And I still don't like it. And the longer it goes on, the closer we get to a DeGrom return, the more it's going to kind of sting Bryce. But we'll see. Next traded away Yuli Gurriel and got back Blackburn and Mancini. That's actually a really good deal. I give him an A+ for that. Blackburn's been solid, 2.6 ERA, 1.46 whip. Gurriel has been dog shit. And Trey Mancini has been really good. He's actually adjusted to the new Baltimore fences pretty well. He's actually starting to hit a few home runs, 6 home runs, 24 RBIs, 24 runs, and a very solid 374 on base percentage. Got to respect that. So I think that's an A+ trade there. Then you traded for Kyle Tucker, and then you traded him, Mancini, and Bassett to Peter to get Verlander and Walsh. What? Why?
Yeah, here's the X factor to me in this one is going to be Jared Walsh. Jared Walsh right now is on pace for 30 home runs, close to 90 RBIs, blah, 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 this and that. The OBP is a little low. If Jared Walsh can continue to be that player and you also pair in Justin Verlander, fine, that's great. But I don't know how you feel about him. I know his ERA is a little bit higher than you like. Chris Bassett's been a pretty darn good pitcher over the last few years. And I'm not a huge fan of him just giving him up like that, because I think Chris Bassett's a pretty good guy. He's
it was almost like a throw-in. Like Bassett's not a
I would feel so much better about this if it was Tucker and Mancini for Verlander and Walsh, because I think you could argue that. I think you could argue that. throw that extra pitcher in Bassett or that extra player in Bassett, even if you could have taken out Mancini and it was Bassett and Tucker. I think it's the 3-for-2 that's throwing me off here. If he could have somehow made this a 2-for-2 with a combination of players, that'd be fine. But I think really the X factor becomes Jared Walsh.
But you're really buying high on Verlander, and we've already seen some regression. He already had one bad blow up start, and then he bounced back. He's pitched well. The thing that's surprising about Verlander is he's averaging just over a strikeout an inning. And so like it's not like the typical Verlander strikeout rate that we've seen in the past, like where he's, this isn't 250 strikeout Justin Verlander, and he's kind of getting hit harder, and his underlying numbers would suggest that he's kind of due for some regression. You look at his FIP and his Sierra and stuff. That I think if Verlander's going to finish the year, maybe like a 3.2 ERA kind of guy. And then he's going to, maybe if he throws 150 innings, I'll have 160 strikeouts. And that's the guy that you're going to give up Kyle Tucker for, who's like a fringe first round draft pick. I just don't think that the value here is kind of 1-to-1. And I think that Verlander is old. I don't even know he's going to pitch after this year. He's got a high contract, and I don't know if he's going to be kept.
Yeah, it was tough. Like I said, I would have loved it a lot more if it was a 2-for-2, giving up that one extra piece. Even if you could have held on to a Mancini or held on, it was tough. That's tough.
I think he needs Jared Walsh to be like a 35 home run, 100 RBI guy if he really wants to have this trade work out. I just don't think it will, and I just think that's a low sell on Kyle Tucker and what the return is. Yeah, and then the fact that Bassett's basically a throw-in is kind of a slap in the face. Wasn't a big fan at the time, still not a fan, and I think it hurts. Going to hurt him a lot more than it helps him. Made a trade with Tyler. He traded away Aaron Hicks and Cabrian Hayes.
Talked about this one a little bit, yeah.
Got back Dylan Carlson and Sonny Gray. Kind of just turned into Cabrian Hayes for Sonny Gray, which you seem to like.
Yeah, I mean, Sonny Gray's been pretty solid overall. I mean, obviously he's been banged up, but over the last little bit, he's been pretty good. So I like this, especially with the pitching that he probably might need. But Sonny Gray's been pretty consistent over the last few years, getting a lot of strikeouts, pitching pretty well. So I actually like the move. Dylan Carlson obviously has been banged up a little bit, hasn't played much, but he was okay last year. I know you tried trading him off a lot, but Aaron Hicks is nothing right now. Cabrian Hayes is too high of a contract anyway, so I actually don't hate this for Bryce. I think he did all right.
Yeah, I think he gets a B, maybe B+ for it. Yeah, I think Sonny Gray is going to be probably more valuable than Cabrian Hayes is. If Sonny Gray keeps pitching the way he's pitching, which, I mean, Sonny Gray's been a solid pitcher at certain points in his career. You got to catch him at the right time. And then last, Alex Wood for Jorge Soler. We know what Jorge Soler does. He gets scorching hot. He hits 10 home runs in 2 weeks, and then he regresses back to being Jorge Soler for 2 months. So you just got to catch him at the right times. 12 home runs, 29 RBIs, nothing to sneeze at. He's got 323 on base percentage, which is probably about league average at this point. So he's probably a helpful bat there. And Alex Wood has been bad up until his very last start. So I think it's probably a C+ trade. I don't think that either player is really going to move the needle for anybody, but I think at this point you got to say Jorge Soler has been more productive than Alex Wood has been.
Yeah, I mean, so far I would say so. I think Wood will kind of go back to his usual kind of high 3s ERA, kind of strikeout an inning type vibe, and that's kind of what I was going for. You can never have enough pitching, especially when it comes to a certain point. So.
All right, well, let's take a look at what Bryce's team looks like right now. We got Grandal, Votto, Wong, Donaldson, Bogarts, Mountcastle, Walsh, Grisham, Soler, Crone, Hernandez, and talk about an offense that does not scare you. Having Kyle Tucker in this lineup might have changed that, but yeah, there's a lot of gaps here, and there's a lot of guys that just aren't really productive. I mean, you got Colton Wong and Cesar Hernandez in the same lineup, just draining your home run count. You got Donaldson, who's getting up there at 36 years old, who hasn't, not producing like he used to be. Mountcastle, he's played decent, but I mean, he's still not really the kind of guy that you'd hope that he would be and what his upside is. And he's still 302 on base percentage and 8 home runs. You really need him to be at like 12 home runs by now if you really want to get the most out of him. Walsh, he's been okay, good enough. Trent Grisham, another guy that's not power or speed at this point this year. 3 home runs, 1 stolen base, and draining your on base percentage at 286.
At least he got him for cheap, though.
Oh no, he spent $28 on him.
I know.
And then he keeps touting how good Alek Thomas is, and how he's like one of the best rookies so far this year. And then he didn't even play him. He's got him on his bench. So yeah, this offense does not scare me. The pitching staff has been pretty decent. He's got some guys that have pitched well so far. There's a lot to like about his pitchers. I think that he needs to make a few moves to bolster the offense, but yeah, there's not a lot that I like when I look at this lineup.
And my thing is like lineup decisions are kind of interesting. Like I'm just curious when it comes to his lineup, why have Caesar Hernandez and over Alec Thomas,
33
over
runs scored.
over Victor Robles? But you're missing out on. I mean, Alec Thomas has 5 home runs and 95 at bats.
Mm-hmm.
Why not? You know, I mean, you at that point you're starting Caesar Hernandez as a 1 category player, right?
Yeah, and you hope that maybe he has a good on base percentage week.
Yeah, it's interesting, but like I said, I put Bryce a little bit higher in my power rankings because he is getting the head-to-head done right now. I mean, that's how it is. Do I think he maybe is more towards 10, 11 in the teams? Probably. I mean, I probably do, but I got to give him respect where respect is due, and he's been winning those games. But you are right. The lineup is not scary by any means. But here's the thing I will say about Bryce's team. I don't love the names of the pitching staff, but they're doing it right now. I mean, there's just no way of saying that they're not. Verlander's getting it done. Mikolas is getting it done. Eovaldi's getting it done. Blackburn's getting it done. And then, oh yeah, he's got 2 closers with double-digit saves. Bard and Clase, or however you pronounce it, who's been fantastic for him. So why, as of right now, and then by the way, Sonny Gray's going to come back soon. He doesn't have a lot of the arms in the back there, but overall, I don't hate his rotation. I think it's you got the ace up top in Verlander, and then pretty solid the rest of the way.
Here's what you can say about Bryce's team is that it's not great, but it doesn't have any holes.
Right. Yeah, and I do think, and it does seem like it's missing that one more big player. And I don't know, maybe instead of spending 28 on Grisham and 36 on Cabrian Hayes, you could have had that big player. But it's tough because you also got Mondesi sitting on your bench with $23 as well. So he always just makes these interesting moves, which I think a lot of times hurts him more than it doesn't. But like you said, his team is not bad.
Yeah, it's funny. He makes all these moves, and then it's just like, we're like, well, he lost this trade, and he lost this trade, he gave up too much here, and he lost this trade, and then we look at it more like, well, it's not bad. And it's kind of how it always turns out. But yeah, I mean, the pitching staff is good. It doesn't have any holes. I mean, if Blackburn continues to pitch the way he's pitching, then yeah, you're solid. He's got his ace in Verlander. Mikolas is a 2. If he keeps this up, we're going to say a lot of ifs here, but as they are currently constituted right now, it's a solid pitching staff. Do I think Mikolas is going to keep it up? No, I don't. Do I think Eovaldi's going to keep it up? Yeah, I actually do think Eovaldi's going to keep it up. I think he's going to be like a 3.4 ERA guy. 1.1 whip seems kind of reasonable, and decent strikeout numbers from him. I kind of like Eovaldi, especially for $3 B contract. That's not bad. So, I mean, if you get Sonny Gray back and it's like Verlander's your 1, Sonny Gray's your 2, Blackburn, Eovaldi 3 and 4, and you got your 2 closers in Bard and Clase, who seem to be pretty loaded into their roles.
And Helsley. He's
got as well. Maybe he's got some trade bait with Helsley, and maybe Whitlock turns it around. The thing about Whitlock is I just know Whitlock's a good pitcher. I just don't know what role he'll be for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
And I think that there's pieces here, especially with the pitching, that are intriguing. And maybe you get somebody to buy on Eduardo Rodriguez when he gets healthy, or Chris Flexen, or Lodolo's got promise, or Bailey Ober, who is kind of in a contract, who's young enough arm that maybe you get some guys to kind of supplement. I don't think he needs to overhaul the offense, but I just think that he needs to kind of improve on some of these players. He needs, he could use a better third baseman. Cesar Hernandez is not fantasy relevant at this point in his career.
Right.
And so Trent Grisham doesn't belong in his lineup. What's Trent Grisham providing for you at all?
Yeah, nothing. over those names I mentioned. Over
it's not like he's been hurt either. He's got 180 at bats.
Yeah.
So there's definitely holes here. I think that he could give up some pitching for some hitting, but I think a lot of guys are selling pitching and not buying hitting at this point because of the offensive environment that we've seen. That he might have to wait a little bit to kind of get what he needs to kind of fill those gaps. I mean, I don't think he's going to sustain that head-to-head record that he has. I mean, I think it's going to be more reflective of what his roto score is, but we'll see if he can kind of just sneak out a few wins here and there and get all the right matchups, stars align. He could, as we saw last year, anything can happen once we get to playoffs. All right, so that was number 8. Number 7, who is number 7 for me and number 9 for you, which is yourself.
Yep.
You view yourself as the number 9.
I have to. I got to work my way back in.
Yeah, and I view you as number 7. I'm a little bit higher on you. I think that there's some things here to see. let's take a look at some of the
I mean,
moves.
let's not forget, didn't you and Chris have me as number 1 too? So there's definitely some underperformers going on.
Certainly, as there always is.
Always is.
All right, so made a few moves this year, not many. You traded away Real Muto and got Marcus Stroman. How's that working out for you?
Well, fine, because it led to the next one, which is working out pretty good
which
for me.
is trading away Devers and getting back Contreras and Simeon.
Yes, which I think has actually, especially lately, if you put those two numbers together, I think has been working out fantastically.
Yeah, I think for me, like I was not keeping Contreras, which shame on me, but I mean I just didn't have the roster spot for him. Looking at what he is now, I mean, yeah, if you look at it as Devers for Simeon and you go, holy shit, that's bad. But with the production, Contreras is far and away the best catcher in baseball right now, and he's produced well for you. What do his numbers look like? He's got 10 home runs, 23 RBIs, 35 runs scored, and an over 400 on base percentage. Even chip in 2 stolen bases doesn't hurt either. Far and away the best catcher in the league. So yeah, I think that's kind of a win-win for both sides there. Plus, you were able to kind of supplement. You got plenty of third basemen. So
and Simeon. I mean, I know he got off to that awful start, but Simeon's on pace for 30 steals. He's been finally. I think he's got 4 or 5 out of his last 6 home runs have come in the last, not like 30 days. So I mean,
yeah,
he's really starting to get going. That week he had this. Oh my God, look at that week this week. It's been a nice week for him. 5 home runs and 4 steals in the last 7 days. So
yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So I think overall it's worked out well for me, which is why I did the Stroman for Real Muto one. Because again, Real Muto at that price, I know we're not really looking at prices this deep into the season. And yes, you could argue he's been one of the better catchers, but Real Muto, I think he's what, $20, 20 something dollars.
I think he was he? I think it was like 18, but yeah, you might be right.
Yeah. So
it'll be like 23 next year.
I don't know if that's keepable. I don't, but yeah. So I like the Simeon Contreras move for me. I know Devers has still been Devers though, so he's been fantastic.
Traded away Josiah Gray, who you weren't playing, for Tanner Rainey, who you have played, who has scooped up a few saves for you. He's got a few saves, a few blown saves. He hasn't been great, hasn't racked up a ton of saves, but Josiah Gray was also dropped by me and then picked up by Jay, and now he's turning things around. Wonderful. So I mean, it's kind of give you a B- on that. I mean, probably B+. I mean, you've used Tanner Rainey, you probably wouldn't have used Josiah Gray, so
right.
Decent there. Jorge Soler for Alex Wood, I'll give you a C-, just because I think Jorge Soler is more usable than Alex Wood at this current time, but maybe down the road, as you might said, I think that in August, Alex Wood might be more valuable than Jorge Soler, so it might work out. And then another trade between us, Ketel Marte for Robbie Ray.
Ooh, that was a fun one. That was like a couple 2-3 week long negotiation. Ooh, that was a back and forth, man.
And it's not been great for me. It's probably been a little bit better for you. What do you like in Ketel Marte?
Oh, I'm loving it so far. The last 14 days, he pretty much since I got him, right? When was this trade made?
Yeah.
May 23rd. So yeah, pretty much exactly the last 14 days. He's really starting to turn it on a little bit. It's kind of what I needed. I had a lot of arms, and my thing is I was already pretty high in the K department, and I know Robbie Ray is going to get me Ks. So I felt like if I could sacrifice that for a potential offensive superstar, I needed to do it because my offensive numbers are as low as they are. So I think I like the move. I think it could work out for both of us. And Ray hasn't been dreadful for you, but he does have those starts where he jumps that ERA and whip up.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, thing about Ketel Marte that really worried me the most is like I don't love his $18 contract. It's not bad, but it's not the contract that I kind of like to have on my team. But I worry about the counting stats because you said he's got a 385 on base percentage over the last 2 weeks, but only 7 runs and 6 RBIs. So, I mean, I guess that's not horrible if you look at it, it's only a 2-week stretch, but I worry about the counting stats. The Arizona isn't going to be a great lineup. And it's just kind of trading. I needed the strikeout. You didn't need the strikeouts. I needed the strikeouts. I needed strikeouts. I needed whip. And so far, Robbie Ray over his last 2 weeks has been a 6 ERA and a 2 whip. So I'm glad you got out of him at the right time. His contract's a little bit better. I think he's $7 or something like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, I think it's a pretty even trade. I think we both got what we needed, and hopefully both players can kind of thrive and on their new teams under new management.
There we go.
All right, let's take a look at E-Rock.
Take it away. Take it away for me,
squad here. Oh, Eric. I mean, I have you a little bit higher than you have yourself in the power rankings. I think this team has a little bit of everything, and I think it's obviously a team that's underperformed so far. I think Matt Olson's underperformed. There's some regression coming that way. Marcus Simeon, he's starting to turn things around. Ketel Marte, he's going to be, I think, pretty solid for you. Bryce Harper, I worry, and I'll get to him in a sec. I don't know what we're gonna get out of
Don't
Josh
start that
Taylor,
again, Kyle. Don't start the
Estrada,
Bryce Harper
Verdugo.
worrying
No,
thing.
I'm gonna. I got something to say in a little bit.
All right.
And these final three guys, I don't really know what you're gonna get rest of year, but they've been decent so far and putting up the counting stats. DJ LeMahieu on the bench is questionable. Was he hurt, or you're just benching him?
No, Verdugo has been really hot as of lately, and Estrada as well. I mean, I don't want to say, like, looking at the C contract players, I think what has helped me stay afloat is my C contract players have really performed. I know I just got Farmer, but he's already doing stuff for me. Naylor, Estrada. So I've been kind of trusting those guys. I even have Oscar Gonzalez, who's got off to a pretty decent start with Cleveland, but they've kept me afloat. So Verdugo's kind of been hot, so I put him in over LeMahieu. Yeah.
Yeah, I just like this offense is good, not great. I think that there's some guys here. Like, I don't think that Rojas, I don't think he's very fantasy relevant.
I love Rojas, man.
You like him because he plays 1,000 positions.
No, look at his year last year. Look at his year last year.
What? He had 11 home runs. What do you mean? He had 500 at bats. He only hit 11 home runs.
70 runs scored, 10 steals, 340 OBP.
69 runs scored is helping you for a guy that's going to get you 500 at bats? That's hurting you.
Oh, I guess. I don't know.
So 11 homers and 69 runs scored in a full season and 44 RBIs. That's not a helpful asset. And it's not like he's stealing a bunch of bases either. He's had 9 steals. He basically only helps you in on-base percentage. And the positional versatility thing is great, but like, I don't want him playing any of those positions because it doesn't help you anyway.
I guess. I mean, he's putting up better numbers than LeMahieu over that same with half the at-bats.
Yeah, well, if you want to trade LeMahieu, you have my number. But I mean, LeMahieu's on base percentage still 347 on the year. You gotta like that. Counting stats, 27 runs scored, 25 RBIs. Even if the homers aren't there, still kind of like what you see from DJ LeMahieu. You need Chris Bryant to get back sooner rather than later because these reinforcements have to come. But I mean, between some of these guys, between Farmer, Rojas, Naylor, Estrada, Verdugo, and even Chris Taylor, I mean, you're not going to get like a whole lot of 5 category production from these guys. You're not going to get that any ceiling from any of these guys either. My thing about Bryce Harper is that Bryce Harper is played like an MVP when healthy. My concern with Bryce Harper is that if the Phillies continue to play poorly, he needs surgery. They might shut him down at some point this year if the Phillies fall out of the playoff race and if they continue along this path. I could see Bryce Harper just getting surgery in September, August, September. And I don't think it's something that's imminent, but it's just something to kind of keep in the back of your mind for that, where like, don't be shocked if this happens. Be very rare, but I mean, it's a guy that he obviously can't play the field. He can't throw a baseball right now. So
I love the DH, by the way. I don't know if I've ever made that mention.
Yeah, exactly. It's saved Bryce Harper's season so far because he would have had to gotten surgery already. So
yeah, I mean, I would if the DH did not go to the National League this year, I would not have had Bryce Harper this whole year.
So big win by you. Adley Rutschman. That's all I'll say. I'll say his name. That's it.
And the funny thing is that I drafted him for next year. Yeah, because I have Wilson Contreras, and at this point, Wilson Contreras is an easy keeper at $14. So I'll keep Rutschman, the best hitting catching prospect in a decade, on my team.
If you keep 2 catchers, I'll laugh.
I would 100%. I would. The thing with Willie is it's not really you're keeping 2 catchers, right? Because this is a guy that's DHing a lot. I mean, that's the thing about Willie that makes him even so much more valuable as the best hitting catcher is he's playing a lot of games as DH. I mean, he's getting his at bats. So that's the nice thing about it.
Yeah. So you have your catcher, so you don't need to keep in $8 Adley Rutschman.
Oh, I do. Oh, I can tell you this, and it's not even out of spite. I will 100% keep him next year, regardless of his numbers. He is, yes, 100%.
I hope, as your opponent, I hope you do.
I will.
The pitching rotation, you've gotten a few good performances, a few great performances from guys like Kyle Wright and Luis Severino have been studs. The guys in the back end like Jose Barrios, and as you had Robbie Ray once upon a time, we're really dragging you down a little bit in the ERA and whip stats. But your rotation has a little bit of everything. I mean, you have your strikeouts. Severino's going to strike out plenty. Barrios is going to strike out a few. And there's guys to like here. it needs some stuff to go right. It has the upside. You need Brandon Woodruff to get back. And once Brandon Woodruff gets back, he's your ace, and Severino's your 2, and Kyle Wright's your 3, and Berrios is your 4. And then you just kind of need to figure out who's your 5 between Clevenger, Kluber. I mean, that's a solid rotation. It's good. Diaz is a top probably 5 closer in the league. It's shocking he only has 11 saves with how many games the Mets have won.
Look at the strikeouts too. He's almost averaging 2 strikeouts an inning.
Yeah, that's very good, and it's kind of a huge boost for you. Springs, we'll see what you get out of Springs if he loses his rotation spot once Shane Baz gets there, or they already demoted Yarborough actually, so Springs is probably there to stay, right?
Yeah, I hope so, at least.
And maybe Grayson Rodriguez can get healthy at some point this year. I don't know if Keegan Thompson will be fantasy relevant, and I don't know when Stroman will get back on track, but I mean, it's a decent
Clevenger
rotation.
too. Clevenger's been solid if he gets finally going in that rotation.
I mean, it's a decent rotation. It's probably like top 5 or 6 when fully healthy. Right now, it's probably top 8, and without Brandon Woodruff healthy. And the lineup is good. It's producing. The counting stats look good, but I think that there's just some room for improvement. I think some of these role players, I think, are going to come back down to earth. These Naylors, Estradas, Verdugos, and Rojas's, where I think you're going to look at the end of the year and go, well, these guys are only like 18 home run guys and 70 RBI guys, and they're just not quality producers that you really want in your lineup.
And the one that hurt me too, the injury that really hurt me, I know it sounds silly, is the Seeger one. Because this is a guy that was on, I know it's just the on pace thing, but he's on pace for a 2020 year. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that was a tough loss for me. And he was scoring quite a bit of runs too. So that was rough. But no, you're right. The C contract players has helped me. And the crazy thing is, the way I've been running my team is I've not hit the panic button yet. I've refused to hit the panic button, just because, again, my thing is, I feel like I'm decently balanced enough where it's like, what could I really trade to improve something? Because if I'm trading my pitching, I'm getting rid of my pitching. If I'm it's really tough because I don't really feel like I can afford to do either. And that's kind of what I've been telling teams in trade negotiations is, yes, I have the pitching, and you even said you like my rotation, and I'm last in ERA and second to last in WHIP. So like, what do I trade for pitching? I mean, I don't feel like I need to, but that's kind of been my mindset. So it's been a tough go so far, but
frustrating situation to be in for sure, where you look at your team, you go, well, like I have Severino and Kyle Wright playing well and Diaz playing well. And it's just like, well, I could trade for pitching, but then you just got to bump one of those guys out of your rotation.
Right. It's made it really tough. And like I said, Kluber's been manageable, maybe Clevenger if he plays. So that's why I haven't hit the panic button, is because I feel like I still have the guys, but it has been frustrating because I've just had some weeks where I'm not kidding. I had a couple of weeks where I didn't hit a home run till Friday. I mean, it's just weeks like that where I'm just like, wow, it's just been crazy.
Yeah. I mean, you look at your team, you only got 2 guys with double-digit homers, and one of them's your catcher.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, I think there's definitely a little bit of power drip here, and and the difference is when I expect a lot of these guys to play better. I expect Matt Olson to play better. I expect Simeon to play better. I expect Ketel Marte to play better, but I don't expect some of the other guys that I mentioned to play better. So I think that there maybe is a few things need to be shuffled around here. Maybe you need to take some flyers on some guys with higher upsides to fill in the offense in order if you want to kind of get back in the game. But I don't think that having some of these guys in your lineup will get you back to the relevancy that you think that this team has. So I think that there's some upside that you might need to chase in a few places in order to kind of get back where you should be in the roto rankings or in the head-to-head rankings.
Definitely. I just need Berrios and Woodruff to get their heads out of their ass, and then I'll start rocking.
Yeah. All right. So that was number 7. Number 6, we have Jay's team in the power rankings, who we actually both mirror each other. We got Jay number 6 in the power rankings, and these last 6 are going to be pretty predictable, just at how you look at kind of the standings and how things kind of pan out in the hierarchy of how we see some of these teams and where we are at so far. Has Jay made trades this year? Right?
I don't know.
Oh, he's made plenty. All right. So going back to the offseason, he traded away Nelson Cruz and Charlie Morton for Lucas Giolito. That seems to be working out pretty well for him. I mean, Giolito's salary, I like the salary savings. I mean, Giolito was like $38. I just didn't want to carry that money into the auction. That's why I traded him. Charlie Morton's been hot garbage, and Nelson Cruz hasn't been great, but he's over his last month. He's got like a 400 on base. Yeah, over his last month, he's got a 423 on base percentage. And the power I expect to kind of come around. It hasn't really been there, but weather warms up. Those old bones, they got to warm up a little bit. And I expect him to probably be like a 25 homer, 90 RBI kind of guy with good on base percentage by the end of the year. For Jay, I feel like that trade kind of worked out for him. Giolito's been solid. He kind of 1.4 whip for Giolito.
Yeah, probably a little on the higher end. Is he getting a lot of strikeouts? So I'm pretty sure, right?
As he usually does.
Yeah.
62 strikeouts in 48 innings. Yeah. So I don't think he has too many regrets about that trade. Then he traded for Aaron Nola, traded away Castillo and Eovaldi. Based on what Jay's offseason strategy was, this is kind of a head scratcher because he traded away all his low salary guys for high salary guys. He traded for Giolito, it was like $38, $36, $38. Traded for Aaron Nola, who was like $36, $38, and traded away a $3 Eovaldi.
And Castillo, if I'm not mistaken, that was a trade in February. Castillo was not kept, I believe, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Go ahead.
So in essence, it was basically Nola for Eovaldi, right?
Yeah, essentially. Which I'd rather have the cheaper Eovaldi, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, Aaron Nola has played well, has the better pitcher this year. I'd rather have the Eovaldi's contract. Traded for Yelich and Tim Anderson, traded away Trey Turner. He didn't keep Yelich, did he?
No, he did not.
So he basically traded Tim Anderson, traded Trey Turner for Tim Anderson.
That's head scratching.
He saved a little bit of salary there, but with all the salary he took on, it was almost like undoing all of that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. Very
His offseason was weird, and we always loved his team, but we did make a lot of question marks about his offseason. Yeah. And that big one's coming up that we talked about at length.
Yeah. Traded away Hendricks, Hoskins, and Ryu for Presley. I think that kind of worked out for him.
Until
he traded away Presley and Riley for Rio Muto and Chapman.
And we torched that one earlier, it's still torchable.
Yeah, still retroactively an F. Riley for $1. Oh man, Presley's the closer and Chapman is not great. Chapman is and Crimmy is sitting here. He doesn't need to speak up, but Crimmy, you underrated Chapman. No, I'm pretty much properly rated him. He's gonna be a low batting average, pretty low on base percentage guy. He's gonna hit a few homers. He got 7 homers, 23 RBIs. Okay, average home runs and RBIs, but his on base percentage 312. It's not gonna kill you, but it's still not really all that good. And that's what he's been for the last 3 years. 276 on base percentage in 2020, 314 on base percentage last year, 312 on base percentage this year. He's not a good on base percentage guy. And if he's not going to hit 35 home runs, he's not that valuable, especially at a $14 salary. So not a fan of either one of those.
How about that next one too? That next one's biting him in the ass a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, Mancini's been much better than Gurriel alone. Then to give up Blackburn on top of it, who's been solid, is another trade where he gets a D minus 4. So it's like 3.
How about this one? How about the next one?
Soto for McGutcheon. That's
D minus. Oh man, how good could Jay's team be right now?
Yeah.
Looking at this is almost eye-opening. How good could Jay's team be right now if he had Riley, Presley, Blackburn, Mancini, and Soto?
A lot better than it is right now.
Oh my God.
And then he dropped Yadiel Hernandez and traded Seeger, traded Tim Anderson, John Gray, and Tyler Anderson for Seeger and Jesus Sanchez. I don't think Jesus Sanchez is very good. He's got a promising power bat, but I mean, I don't like this deal at all for Jay. I think that I like Tim Anderson better than Corey Seager. I think that Tim Anderson helps you in more categories, and he's got a better contract than Seager does. I think that John Gray hasn't pitched great, but he's still an A contract and, can turn things around with a change of scenery. He's still getting healthy as well. He was hurt to start the year. He's still figuring it out. And Tyler Anderson's been one of the best C contracts in the league when it comes to pitchers. I just think those are 3 solid assets you gave up for basically just Corey Seager. And I don't think that Corey Seager is a keeper at $31 or at $36 for a guy that doesn't steal bases. And if he might finish the year with 25 homers, 80 RBIs, 80 runs in a Texas lineup that's not that great compared to what he was playing with last year with the Dodgers. So I don't really like this trade at all. I mean, I think there's like 5 last 6 trades. I give him like a D for.
Yeah, it's tough. And it's crazy to think that he's still managing to stay pretty competitive. I mean, his head-to-head record is great. He's in the middle of the pack or road to row. It's crazy.
He's kind of like Bryce, where he just makes a lot of head-scratching trades, and then his team is still kind of solid of what could have been, like what he could have got with some of these trades.
Yep.
Looking at his team, the offense is pretty solid. It's got some holes though. I mean, you gotta like Freddie Freeman, Polanco, Real Muto. Seeger's decent. I mean, I just got done bashing Seeger, but I mean, I bashed him because he's going to be $36 next year, and he helps you. He's not helping you in all the categories. But I mean, still a decent hitter. But I mean, you look at some of these guys. Reynolds isn't really helping you at all this year. McCutcheon not really helping you at all this year. Yuli Gurriel, like he's basically an on-base percentage only guy, and he's got a 267 on base percentage. What is Yuli Gurriel? What is he doing in anybody's lineup? I don't understand why Yuli Gurriel is in your lineup right now. Jesus Sanchez, decent power bat, but at the same time, draining your on-base percentage of 276 on base percentage. Even for a power bat, he's still only got 7 home runs.
And why isn't Espinal in his lineup? Espinal over Gurriel. Yeah. Like those ones just look kind of obvious to me.
Even Urshela's been swinging a much better bat lately. I would have played Urshela over both those guys. And what do you make of Harrison Bader? I mean, you can't bench 14 stolen bases. I mean, that's what, second in the league. But yeah. I guess 30 runs scored. I guess he has been better than I kind of expect him to be, or better than I give him credit for. But
yeah, Bader at $5 is really nice because if we times everything close to 3, maybe not quite because they're not going to play all 162 games. But I mean, he's on pace for close to 40 steals, 90 runs. I mean, I would say so. He's been pretty solid.
Yeah, I guess I don't really give him enough credit because I've always thought of him as like a glove first kind of guy. So it's kind of hard to say. But yeah, I mean, if he's gonna produce 90 plus RBIs and 30 plus stolen base, that's definitely a usable guy with a decent on base percentage. I just think that if Bader doesn't finish the year with 10 home runs, I wouldn't be surprised. So that's kind of the thing about Bader is I just don't know what the bat is going to be. If he on base percentage drops below 300, I wouldn't be shocked by it. So he might be like more of a 25 stolen base, 10 home run guy at the end of the year, which I don't really love that kind of guy.
He can't afford not to have Bader in his lineup too, because I don't think there's another guy on his team that gets 15 steals. I don't think there is, because Freddie Freeman and JT Realmuto are right now second on his team in steals. Yeah. And here's the thing, lack of power. He's got Stanton and Seeger at double-digit home runs. Who else? Freeman has 4. He's on pace for 12. 8. Yeah. Reynolds has 8, which is good, but who's hitting in front of him with 14 RBIs? 14. Yeah.
Ouch.
And he's got 20 runs scored because he's on the Pirates.
Yeah, so, exactly.
I mean, who's giving that power? If Bader goes down, he's not getting any steals. Mm-hmm. His on-base percentage for a lot of these guys, Real Muto, very uncharacteristic. Matt Chapman, as advertised. Corey Seager, very uncharacteristic.
Are we giving this offense too much credit? This offense is not good.
It's not. And that's when we take a look at the rotation. The offense can hold fort right now, but it's really not that great. There's a few underperformers. The pitching, on the other hand, has kind of kept them a little bit alive with Cole, Giolito, Kirby, and Nola. Sandoval's been pretty solid as well. Whip's a little bit high. Jansen's been good. So again, it's one of those teams that's very middle of the packish.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very blah. I mean, the rotation's solid. I mean, you got your big 3 in Cole, Giolito, and Nola, and they're all pitching fairly well. You're going to be relevant when you have those 3 guys there. Patrick Sandoval's been good enough as your 3 or 4, low ERA, 4 quality starts. You'd like to see a little bit more. You'd like more strikeouts out of him, but not bad strikeout numbers. He's hurting you a little bit in whip, but he's not really hurting anywhere else. Kirby's been solid for him. You'd think he had 1 or 2 shaky starts, but you'd take a 3.3 ERA and 1.09 whip as your 4th or 5th starter when you have the other guys there. I think Roansy Contreras is going to be solid. I mean, you look at his numbers so far, he's been really good. I think he should probably be in his lineup. And Josiah Gray, just scooping up off the waiver wires for me. You're welcome. And he's gotten 2 solid starts the last 2 days. So I'll have to read what Creamy just put in the chat in a little bit here. Yeah, I mean, the rotation's solid. He's got 1 closer in Kenley Jansen. He could go for another closer. Doval, who knows what San Francisco is going to do. I mean, it seems like Doval's the closer, but then they used him in like the 6th inning, his last 2 outings. So it's so hard to predict what they're going to do there. But yeah, I mean, I would say that Eddie might have a better lineup than Jay has here. And I think I would argue that some of the others that we've said, in the past that have better lineups than some of these guys. Dave might have a better lineup than what Jay has here. And for these guys that are higher in the power rankings, we have to be more critical. We have to look at you having Yuli Gurriel as your utility and Jesus Sanchez as your other utility and go, you have to find upgrades somewhere for these guys. Yeah. Maybe if you need Pasquantino gets called up, but maybe he doesn't. And until he gets called up, like, you can't have these guys in your lineup that are just killing you. And
Yep.
and it's really killing you. And that's why you're kind of out of the money here in Roto and hanging on by a thread in the head-to-head. Is he in the head-to-head playoffs right now?
46-31.
Let's see here.
He's
What does that
doing
put him?
he's doing pretty darn well in head to head.
Okay, so he's third, so he's gotten a little lucky. So I guess that's kind of good for him. But I mean, he's gonna need to sustain that. So yeah, I mean, talking through some of these things, I'm kind of a little bit lower leaving this conversation than I am entering it. And yeah, maybe if Hanner comes back, maybe Horde comes back, it kind of bumps some of these guys out. But
Yeah.
still, there's guys here that I just don't think are going to be big producers for him. That I think that maybe if he made a few trades here or there, that he could get some better producers. And nobody wants to make the 1-for-3 trades. But like, there's teams like this where, like, if you replaced McCutchen and you replaced Yuli Gurriel in your lineup, like, it makes sense for some people where you get quality contributors.
Oh yeah. And the thing that Jay has at least going forward with him is, again, guys like Real Muto, and I don't even want to say Freeman's been struggling because he's on pace for 90 RBIs and 100 runs. But do we really anticipate Freddie Freeman only hitting 12 home runs on the year? I mean,
No.
I don't. Do we anticipate JT Real Muto hitting 9 with 57 RBIs? I don't. So at least he's got that going forward for him. Does Corey Seeger sit around a 300 on base the rest of the year? I don't think so. So at least we do have, kind of similar to my team, guys that aren't really playing bad, but will do better. So I think that's where Jay's kind of holding his head on, though. But even a guy like McCutchen, is he startable right now? Like,
I wouldn't.
that's rough. That's rough. So he's got a few guys in there that are really dragging him down. But those are the things we mentioned when, guess what? He went into the auction draft with $25. So, I mean, we might be seeing that kind of coming to fruition here.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough. Brings us to our 5th player in the power rankings, which is a guy that we both share as the 5th spot, which is a guy who we could both agree who's kind of underperformed, whose best days are ahead of him, but just where he's at right now, you can't push him up higher than that. And that is going to be Crimmy Charles. Your time is here, Crimmy. Number 5 in the power rankings. Let's take a look at some of those trades that you've made so far. Oh, where's that Crim's crew? Made a few trades. Middle of the pack was at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 trades since the start of the calendar year.
Only Crim, right? Only Crim.
Yeah. Traded away T1 Walker and Eloy Jimenez, got back Nick Castellanos. That looks like a pretty good trade so far. Traded away Stroman, got Real Muto. Not looking good considering you're paying $18, $20 for a catcher. Yeah, 20. You were right, $20, Eric, for Real Muto. $20 for a catcher that's only got 3 home runs and 19 RBIs. Not looking great there so far.
And then the next one, though, then it switched around. That was the big one.
Then this one here, looks pretty good. Where you traded away Real Muto and Chapman, got Austin Riley, Ryan Presley. Nicely done there. A+ for you, Crim. Then we analyzed this Pablo Lopez trade. You traded away CJ Cron and Alex Wood, got back Pablo Lopez. Kind of a wash. I think that Pablo Lopez, CJ Cron, pretty similar in value there.
Yeah.
We kind of touched on that. Kind of fit each team's needs, hopefully. Traded away Cortez and got Gallegos back. We know why you made the trade, but it still doesn't really look good for you. We know you needed the closer, but Cortez has been much better pitcher and much more valuable than Gallegos has been.
And the tough thing with this one is it was April. And yes, Presley went down for a little bit, but I don't know if I would have hit the panic button too quick on needing a closer because heck, I think I've ran 2 closers twice in the season so far, which granted I'm a little bit paying for it, but man, Cortez, it's tough. But again, he did the buy high, sell high thing. So it happens.
Crimmy wouldn't hit the power button. He's not, or the not panic button. He's not the type to do that.
No, never.
Then traded away Correa and Mikolas, got back to Grom. Love the upside swing there. I mean, Crimmy
to be determined, yeah.
Well, it's to be determined, but I mean, like, Crim is in the perfect spot for this because he got off to a decent start. I mean, he beat me and he's at 80 points in Roto. He's like in the perfect spot to take the swing on Jacob deGrom because like this trade could win him the league. Based on like all he had to do was weather the storm. And he's got guys like Chris Sale and he had Kershaw once upon a time waiting in the wings. But like he did exactly what he had to do in these first 2 months to wait for some of these guys to get healthy, where now he can kind of turn on the burners and turn and burn. And he might not look back if he can kind of make up the ground in the next month or two. Yep. Let's see if it kind of pays dividends and if some of these guys can get and stay healthy, but we'll talk about it in a little bit. Traded away Mike Trout. Not often you see a guy like Mike Trout traded, but Eric seems to like this value more than I do, getting Bregman and getting Bieber. But we'll see how it kind of pans out for him. What grade would you give him for these last two trades?
The DeGrom one's still tough to say, but I think even if he doesn't pitch a single inning this year, I'm keeping him, right? I mean, I don't know. I would. There's
Yeah.
never in his career has he indicated that he's ever pitched bad. So I would keep him even if he doesn't pitch an inning this year. So overall, you could argue that if Correa and Mikolas plays as well as they do, Bryce gets the upper hand. But I think overall, I think you really got to like what he did here because he traded away a superstar in Trout, but was able to get a DeGrom, was able to get a Bregman, was able to get a Bieber back. And I think it really balanced his team out when he needed it because guys were on the shelf. So I think he did a good job with that.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an A for the DeGrom trade. I think it's going to be a B. I'll give it an A minus for the Trout trade, just because if Shane Bieber continues to do what he's doing now, I like it. The thing with Shane Bieber is I am skeptical of him continuing to do what he's doing. He is a different pitcher now than he was before. He doesn't have the strikeout numbers that he did once upon a time. He's just a different pitcher. The velocity is down, and we'll see where he's at by the end of the year. But with the drop in velocity, that also could indicate some underlying shoulder and arm problems that might indicate some future injury and some time on the IL for him. So it's tough to say this. It's kind of inconclusive, but to trade away the best player in baseball, I mean, Trout's probably got some IL stints in him too. So we'll see. I mean, Bregman's okay, but Bregman's a little overpaid for his contract, and he just hasn't produced, as well as what you want him to for what his contract is. Still a starting third baseman on most teams, but I just don't think that Bregman is the all-star that he once was. 6 home runs, 28 RBIs, 27 runs scored, and a 339 on base percentage. That's not all-star level.
No.
Especially it's not worth the salary that he's got there. So, I mean, we'll see what it kind of pans out to. If Krim looked at his team and said, I need Bieber, and Bieber's going to be like a 2.5 ERA kind of guy, then it might work out. But I think that Trout, if healthy, is still kind of the guy. And then we have our last trade. I like this trade for Crimmy, getting Chaz Chisholm and Kike Hernandez. Kike is kind of take him or leave him, but Chaz Chisholm for $2 as a 5-category contributor. Only had to give up Kershaw and Horner, but I like Horner, but I don't think that Horner's really a fantasy staple in most lineups. I think he's a good depth guy, bench guy. I like him as a player. I'm glad he plays for the Cubs. I don't know how fantasy relevant he'll be. And Clayton Kershaw, like I said, I have innings concerns about Clayton Kershaw. He's got to get healthy. He's got to stay healthy. And as you said, there's inning concerns for him as well with the Dodgers letting him pitch deep into games. So I kind of like what we see here. Anything else you want to say about some of these trades?
And I will say this, we don't know the full potential of Jazz Chisholm yet. He played in 124 games last year and hit 18 home runs, 23 steals. He's already showing the power.
16 homers in the first month.
Right. And he's already got 10 right now, home runs, and he's got 9 steals. This is genuinely, if you're looking on pace, this is genuinely a guy, and he's played 44 games. He hasn't played 60. So he hasn't even played all of his team's games.
Yeah.
He could be a 30-30 guy.
Yeah.
I mean, legitimately, and he's going to score 90 runs. The only thing he's not going to contribute for is on base. And it's not like his on base is absolutely awful. If you're getting 30 home runs, 30 steals, are you not like a $40 player?
Yeah. Well, and you have kind of both sides of it too, where it's he's not really been an on base percentage guy in his career, but he's also, how old is he? 23, 24 years old. He might even be younger than that.
And I hate to do the whole position thing, but he plays second base. There's not many great guys you can plug into second.
No, I mean, it's definitely an argument in his favor. Jazz Chisholm is 24. So, I mean, he's still developing this, but he might improve as a more patient, he might walk more, might improve his on base percentage. You never know. So looking at Crimmy's team, I mean, the offense leaves a little bit to be desired. I mean, looking at short, he doesn't have many holes. You look at shortstop, Andres Jimenez, but then he's oh shit, he's actually a $1 A. Oh, actually, he's got
been
20
really good
runs, 30 RBIs, some home runs, some steals, and a 340 on base percentage. I don't think anybody really saw that coming from Andres Jimenez. I think there's going to be a little bit of regression coming his way, but until that happens, I mean,
and he's only 23 though. I mean, who knows, right?
Maybe. I mean, maybe he is Jazz Chisholm. Who knows? You're right. So, yeah, I mean, you look at shortstop as a weakness, but is it really a weakness? Maybe not. And so you got Drury and Hosmer at utility, who you just kind of hope you get something out of them. I mean, Drury, holy shit, 11 homers, 30 RBIs, 36 runs.
Just
scored.
Picked up 2 weeks ago, too.
Yeah, so it's not like he's gotten that production, but yeah, I mean, that's if you can get anything close to that production, he's in good shape. Gabriel Moreno might slide in his utility after this week. We'll see. He's finally benched Lourdes Gurriel. Maybe Spencer Torkelson can kind of come around. I don't see many holes in the offense. I don't love Profar, but it's kind of a complete offense. He's got some power. He's got some speed. And so the offense looks decent. It's not the best offense in the league, but it's definitely solid. It's one of those teams where they're like, I don't really see many holes here. And then you go down to the pitching staff. It doesn't look solid right now, but you got DeGrom and Chris Sale waiting in the wings. So yeah, you go, oh, Noah Syndergaard's like his 3 right now, and that's not great. But in like a month or 2, he's going to be his 5, and that is great.
Yeah, and the thing with Krim's team too is he's kind of, honestly, that's why it's kind of been interesting the way you've kind of at times criticized his approach, but he's kind of done what you say you like to do. Stars and scrubs. He's got stars with big contracts: Acuna, Castellanos, Bregman, Bieber, Manoah's a big contract. And then look at how many guys he has in his lineup under $5.
Yeah.
Heim, Riley, Chisholm, Jimenez, Nimmo, Profar, Drury, Hosmer.
Love it.
I mean, literally 9/12 of his lineup is under $20. I mean, that to me is insane. And that's another reason why I love the Kershaw move so much, because it's not.
Knew he was going to be starting scrubs because going into the year, he had Trout and Acuna on his team.
And he was able to, exactly. And my thing with the way he's kind of assembled this roster too, is Kershaw was how much? I think he was $26, which you can argue fair price for the production he is when he's on the field, right? But now, again, I hate to do the whole looking to next year thing, but now looking to next year, guess what Krim just got? He doesn't have to make a decision on a $30 Kershaw, whether he pitched good or not. Guess what he got? He got a $2 Jazz Chisholm now moving forward to next year, a $7, Jazz Chisholm moving to next year. So not only is he competing and making moves for this year, he's shedding salary in the process and making his team better, because we've known all year, not only has his pitching been good, Pablo Lopez made that trade. Alek Manoah at $30. I remember you weren't sure on that one. He's been fantastic. Presley, great. He's got the closers. And then DeGrom and Chris Sale are just waiting to come back. So not only does he have trade ammo still, but where is the definite hole in his team? I don't see it.
Yeah, there really isn't one. And that's what you gotta like to hear if you're Crimmy. And I mean, this team is built for sustained success too. If you look at the guys that he's kept in some of his cheaper arms that are, DeGrom and Sale, and hopefully those guys can stay healthy. I mean, those are going to be keepers for the next 2-3 years. Sale is a B contract, but you're still going to keep Sale at $11, I would assume, unless he sustains another injury, which is possible. I mean,
it is.
Had the best health, but I mean, Alek Manoah, I mean, $30 seemed like a lot for a guy that hadn't proved it, but he's proving it this year. He's kind of sticking it to me a little bit. I mean, under a strikeout inning is surprising, but I mean, you'd take that if it meant a 1.1 ERA and a 0.96 WHIP. So, I mean, yeah, the pitching staff, once it gets DeGrom back, DeGrom's your 1, Manoah's your 2, Bieber's your 3, Pablo Lopez is your 4, and Chris Sale is your 5, and Syndergaard is your kind of flex or 2-start pitcher. There won't be if healthy, there's not a rotation better than that.
Sorry.
No, I was just say it's a big if. I mean,
right.
Say, well, if DeGrom and Chris Sale, have they ever been healthy at the same time in the last 5 years? I don't know. And, Shane Bieber has his injury concerns as well. But if it's fully healthy, this lineup right here, this team scares me. I don't want to face this team in the playoffs if it gets healthy. Now, if it gets healthy is a big disclaimer. There's a lot of big health risks with a lot of these guys. I mean, Acuna too. You have to have your concerns about some of these guys, but I don't think there is a more scary team in the league right now than Krim's team.
And to think too, this is a guy that went into the draft with Syndergaard, Presley, and Sale as his pitchers.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
That's what he went into the draft with. And now that is Manoah, it's Lopez, it's Bieber. He's even managed to get Taijuan Walker back, who's been okay, a nice little bench piece. DeGrom. So, I mean, it's kind of crazy to think that, and that's why I said post-draft, I said, out of all the teams that had to fill out their rotation, I think Crimson did the best job of it.
Shit, I even misspoke. Freaking Pablo Lopez is his 5.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts. I mean, and that's what I'm saying. The thing that I do agree with you. I think the thing that he doesn't maybe need to worry about is the back end of that lineup. The Profar, the Drury, the Hosmer. Hosmer's kind of starting to regress after his big start. I've never been a big Hosmer guy. He only hits like 12 home runs a year.
Does he have a home run in his last 30 days?
No idea. That's you're right.
One.
and he's getting to the point where if it's not for that on base percentage, is he even startable? Right.
Well,
So
in the last month, his on base percentage is 275. So
right. So
he
I do
doesn't look
worry a
like
little
he's
bit
hurting
about
you on base percentage, but he is. But again,
right.
it's one of those things where just like Drury, a lot of these guys, they look decent, but all their production came when they weren't on Creamy's team.
Right. So you got to hope that the main parts of that lineup stay true. You got to hope Heim continues to hit well for Texas. He's been a nice little piece for him. Like you said, Jimenez. So yeah, he might be missing like those super quality guys, but I think overall it's kind of working out so far.
That's not true. I got to back that up. Hosmer, what he did draft Hosmer. He did have Hosmer in his lineup for that hot streak. So I got to back
Yeah.
that up. I don't want to misspeak there. So he did get Hosmer's hot streak, but now he's getting the cold streak too a little bit. Yeah, there's this team has so much potential that it is scary, and I don't think there's another team that has more upside. I think this team has more upside than my team even has, and I have Fernando Tatis waiting in the wings. So it's definitely interesting to see this pitching staff could be deadly if they get them all healthy.
He probably has the two best B contracts in the league, right?
Who's that?
Riley and Chisholm.
Yeah, I mean, arguments could certainly be made. There's some guys that are better players than those two, where you might just want to get the pay more for the better.
Sure,
players.
yeah. I should say like an maybe an under $5.
Best values could very well be. Yeah, the argument could be made. My argument for Creamy's team, why I've always been so low on him, is the innings pitch thing. And my bold prediction was him not having a pitcher that was going to throw 180 innings. Well, like, I don't think Pablo Lopez throws 180 innings. I don't think that Manoah throws 180 innings. And I don't think Shane Bieber, he might if he stays healthy, but I have my concerns, as I said. But he might just be able to finagle DeGrom and Sale into that, where they're going to hit their stride at the right time, where he doesn't have to worry, because they're getting their innings out of the way, their innings pitched missed out of the way now, that it might be ended up okay for him.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, if we're technically a third of the way through, he's got 4 guys on pace now. So,
all right, going to number 4 in our power rankings is the commish, myself. I feel like I've been a little bit quiet this year. You guys haven't heard from me as much with the trade talks. Made some postseason moves, but I mean, you guys are used to this page going from top to bottom with the trade being bombarded in your inboxes from time to time. So as we kind of go, I'll let you go ahead and take the lead on some of these trades. So,
you want me to go back all the way to the February one or what?
Yeah, you can just give quick grades or how they've worked out.
Giolito, you traded Giolito for Cruz and Morton, which has worked out. I mean, like we talked about Giolito stats already, it's worked out okay. Morton hasn't really been anything to this point
I would
yet.
not have got to Giolito for 38.
Right. Yeah. So it's kind of, and Morton's just been awful. So Cruz has kind of turned it around. So kind of whatever there at this point. Then you obviously have the big one with Justin, which we kind of talked about. Gosman's really making that one the difference maker. But Bregman and Iglesias with the saves and stuff. Again, I like this a lot for Justin at first, because I thought you got Abreu, you got Bregman, you got Iglesias, a lot of pieces there, but Gosman is really making the difference in that trade at this point. Mm-hmm. The other trade with Tyler and you traded DeGrom, Seeger, Lopez, and Gray for Wheeler and Tatis. Obviously, you didn't keep Tatis. So we've discussed that one at length as well. That was a lot of pieces to give up, but you were in a position where you had to give up some keepers. So that was kind of that decision there. But those are some big names there. Seeger, DeGrom, Lopez, and Gray. That's a tough one, because I think all 4 of those guys could be contributors right now this year, outside of obviously DeGrom. So the Simeon Contreras Devers one, it's worked out for you. Devers has been great. You really needed to plug in that third base hole, so that worked out for you.
Not many third basemen available in the draft, hardly any.
Right, exactly. I think like we talked about, it worked out pretty well for both of us. Mm-hmm. You trading or getting Whit Merrifield, trading away Sanchez and Bard, I would kind of look at as a loss for right now.
I got Luke Voit in that deal too.
And Luke Voit, which still kind of a loss.
I'm not saying much.
Yeah, still kind of a loss in that deal to this point, because Sanchez, I mean, he's still on pace for a little bit, but we'll see what happens there. But we'll see. Lopez for Barlow. Barlow is going to be a 5. Let's see. Barlow's 11 saves right now. He's been really solid, 2.21 ERA. You got to love that. And again, why someone would trade for Jorge Lopez, I don't know. The Orioles might win 50 games this year. So that was kind of a question mark
At
on
the
that.
time Jorge Lopez had the saves, he was the closer, and we still weren't sure about Joe Barlow if he was the closer or not, because they weren't sure if they're going to manipulate his service time and not make him the closer. And it was just kind of at the perfect time to buy for me.
Right.
Kind of a week later, it turned out he ended up being the closer. Not really intentional, just why I was taking the swing on the A contract, having the closers that I had.
For sure. The next one, obviously, we've kind of talked about this one already with Justin's side, but on your side, Ozuna is really going to be that difference maker. I know Crawford, we'll see on that. I've never been a huge fan of him. Descalfani, again, same thing, has always kind of been roughed up. If Ozuna returns in that order and he's hitting like 6th or 7th in that order, that could be big. But right now, I think Mateo on pace for 40 steals, with Justin Turner on pace for the RBIs. I think right now that's not looking on the upswing for you at this moment. Rainey for Gray, obviously you drop Gray. Ray for Marte, still to be determined on that one, but Ray's kind of been awful for you up to this point. And then the Pollock Liberatore one. Which one do you think's kind of stuck out or made the biggest impact for you over the season?
There hasn't really been one I mean, I guess it has to be the Barlow for Lopez trade almost, just because I have Knebel and Barlow, who are both like on losing teams, and I'm leading the league in saves somehow. I don't know how I've done it, but I'm leading the league in saves somehow. It's really, really shocking. Yeah, other than that, I mean, not a whole lot here that's really made like huge impacts. I've given away good players. I've gotten good players. Not a whole lot of guys that have like broken out or, had career years on the guys that I've gotten. So we'll see kind of how things work out, but I don't think any of the trades that I've made have really been like substantial. Even like the big blockbuster is like pretty minimal, because I traded away a lot of good starters and got back Wheeler, who's started off shaky, but has been good since. And then I just had to bid my way back to getting Tatis, but we'll kind of see how, if he can come back at some point this year and play well. All right, so brings me to my roster here, my second place roto roster, my out of the playoffs and head-to-head roster. What do you see here?
Lineup wise is kind of where I worry a little bit. Christian Walker, you picked up. Is he really going to be on pace to hit 40 home runs? I don't think so. Ty France has been really solid as that $1 player, doing pretty good for you. Does he keep that up? He did pretty well last year. We'll see. Devers has obviously been a killer. Adames has been good. Again, I don't think he's going to hit 30 home runs this year, and he's only on pace for 75 RBIs and 72 runs.
He's got half the at-bats as everybody else. Only 136 at-bats.
Well, not quite half, but I see what you mean, about 100 less. Yeah. But yeah, the thing is right now is Adams. We'll see if those RBIs continue. We'll see if those runs continue. But the on-base percentage is a little scary there. Whit Merrifield's been tough because he's not getting those steals, really. I don't think he's startable at 20 steals with that OBP. That is tough. Teoscar, same thing. I was not a big fan of Teoscar heading into this year. I know 2021 and 2020, he set the world on fire. And I was like, is this the new Teoscar? Is this the new Teoscar? I wasn't so sure of it, and he's kind of been tough. Ozuna, kind of the same thing. But then you have big boomers. You have Soto. Nelson Cruz is starting to get it going in the RBI department. The home runs have been interesting on Nelson Cruz's aspect. But, I mean, so far, I think you having a kind of similar to mine, weirdly, a lot of underperformers, but a lot of guys that have been performing. I mentioned Ty France. Alejandro Kirk's been one of the best catchers in the league hitting wise so far this year. Devers, MVP track. Laureano has been solid so far in his limited time playing. And then obviously we get to the Tatis conversation. He's going to come back soon. He's going to fill a huge hole in that gap, hopefully soon, where you can basically plug him in and say, where am I struggling the most? And then plop Tatis in there. So that's been good. Looking at the rotation, it's been very, very solid. Zach Wheeler's been good. Framber Valdez has been really good. Robbie Ray, last couple weeks you've had him not so much. But Gausman and Alcantara. I mean, Alcantara, you could argue, is the Cy Young candidate winner right now in the NL, and you've always been a huge fan of his. So Alcantara, Gausman is the 1-2. Valdez and Wheeler 3-4. Very, very good. I don't think you have much to worry about pitching wise at all. You got Urquidy kind of sitting back there. He's really struggled this year. And that's the one thing I'll say about your team that concerns me a little bit. You do have guys like Duran and Fado who've pitched well in small sample sizes. If one of these guys goes down, that's where I wonder, like, where do you put someone in, because you are doing the 2 closer approach. If one of these guys goes down, I wonder who the replacement is. But other than that,
I'll always be 2 closer.
yeah, you'll rock 2 closers for a while. So there's a lot to like on this team. There is a lot to like. I think it's definitely a top 4 team. And now we're entering kind of that period of, now we're in that top 4 range where the roto numbers are really different, right, from these top 4 teams and everybody else. So I think your team is really well rounded, and kind of similar to what we've said about other guys. We're kind of waiting for a couple of these guys to start performing.
Yeah. I like the balance my team has. I don't look at my lineup and see my lineup as having any holes. I mean, Whit Merrifield and Teoscar Hernandez have been my 2 worst players this year. And those are guys that have had track records of over the last 3 years, have been top 5. Well, not Teoscar Hernandez, but Merrifield's been top 5 at his position at second base. And Teoscar Hernandez has been probably top 15 outfielder last, couple of years. And so I have faith in those guys to turn it around. The troubling thing about this team is last place in stolen bases. And I look at this team and I'm like, I don't feel like I have no speed on this team. And it's just like, Devers will pitch in a few, Merrifield, I need him to start stealing more bases. Damas will pitch in a few, Teoscar will pitch in a few, Soto pitch in a few, Laureano pitch in a few. And I feel like I have speed. And then I have Tatis waiting in the wings, but I'm the dead last in stolen base. And it's kind of puzzling. So that's why I'd like to put Luke Voit in my lineup over Laureano, but I need to have the speed in there.
The thing with the steals, though, is I kind of saw that because Merrifield, you were going to hope was going to hit 30 steals, right? And then you wouldn't have to worry about it as much. Tatis could hit maybe 20 when he comes back. But a lot of these guys don't have the track record of steals. Yeah. Laureano, I think, has maybe had the most 12 in his career. Hernandez kind of around the same number. That's a tough part. But the thing, like you said, coming back is Crimson just got Acuna back, who already has 10 steals. So the only thing I worry about, though, is does he get the Trout treatment? Is San Diego, when Tatis comes back and they're seeing him steal bags right away, are they going to tell him don't do that? I don't know. Concerned. I don't know. That's what's tough. But overall, it's pretty balanced. It is pretty balanced.
Yeah. Yeah. So I kind of like that about it, but yeah, I mean, as you guys can see, some of you, I've reached out to you about some of your speed guys. I reached out to Peter. We'll get to his team in a little bit about some speed guys. Rotation's pretty balanced. I'm actually kind of looking to trade a pitcher. I have faith in Charlie Morton. I've been looking to trade for Framber Valdez a few places to try and get some of that speed. I'm fine if Charlie Morton is my 5th pitcher, but yeah, if I do trade one of my pitchers and Charlie Morton slides into my 5, yeah, I don't really have a ton of faith in some of the guys after that until Desclafani comes back, that I can kind of slot in as a 5th guy. It'd be a shaky 5 if that were to happen. And I mean, shit, Charlie Morton's a shaky 5 as is, but I think that Charlie Morton's going to turn things around. I think he'll be solid. I think he's been a solid pitcher for years now, and I don't think a whole lot's changed. His velocity is still fine. Everything still looks the same. He's just not hitting his spots as well as he used to, and I think things will kind of be okay for him. Like where I'm at, but I don't think this team strikes fear into anybody. I think some of our top teams, I just think that the offense isn't the best offense in the league. The pitching, I don't think, is the best pitching in the league. I think I'll beat a lot of teams, and I think it's a good pitching staff and a good lineup, but I don't think that teams look at me and go, man, I really don't want to see Kyle in the postseason.
Yeah. And I think one of the hardest categories for me to almost get is runs, because it's so I've one of the best on base percentages in the league, or I was, and then all of a sudden my runs aren't there. And it's like, you think those would correlate a little bit more, but runs is a tough one too. I mean, when we get to your dad's team, the amount of guys he has over 30 runs is ridiculous. And then when we look at it, like other teams, for example, your team right now, you have 2 guys over 30 runs.
Yeah.
And that's it. And then some of the other guys, Walker, Merrifield, that you picked up, what kind of category contributors are they? That's tough. And runs to me is one of the most hardest categories to predict, because it's like, it's kind of out of the player's hands in a sense.
You never draft for runs the way you draft for stolen bases, but like runs is worth just as much as the category of stolen bases is.
It's just so hard to predict, though, because at that point you're very much outside of the home runs that you're getting runs on. It's very much up to other players' hands. It is.
Yeah, exactly. Coming in at 3rd in the power rankings is a team that is not going to be happy to be here. I can tell you that right now. It is going to be the Platoon, Pistol Pleats Platoon, coming in 3rd place in the power rankings. Now, we have our reasons. I have Peter as the number 2 team. You have Peter as the number 4 team. So it kind of balances out that he kind of lines up here at number 3. Neither one of us have him as the number 1 team.
No.
Well, with Peter's team, we'll get to his kind of trades here. Has he made any trades? No, he's made a couple. The thing about Peter's team is we've been getting ready for this podcast for about a month now. We knew it was coming, and I was getting ready. Peter's the best team. Peter's clearing away the best team. Peter's team has no holes. Like Peter's team, like how could any argument be made that Peter has not the best team? And then the closer look at his roster, I do think that there's a few holes there, and we'll get to those in a little bit. Let's talk about the trades he's made. He traded away Tim Anderson and Yelich and got back Trey Turner. That's probably an A plus. He took on the extra salary of Trey Turner, but that's working out for
Worth
him.
it, yeah. I mean, you could argue Trey Turner is one of the most, easy. Yep.
He gave away Strasburg, Kershaw, and Vaughn, and got back Trevor Bauer, who he did not keep, right?
No, he did not, because I think Phil just got him in the draft, right? So
yeah. And did any of these guys get kept? I think Kershaw got kept, right?
Yes, Kershaw got kept.
Okay, so kind of a wash. He traded away Rutschman and got Kimbrel, A plus, because he didn't keep. No, Rutschman was not kept. Kimbrel is currently the closer of the best team in the National League. Traded away Castellanos, got back Eloy and T1 Walker. Has T1 Walker done anything?
Decent numbers. His strikeouts are make him almost unstartable, but his numbers aren't awful.
Yeah. He kind of gets a D for that one because Castellanos counting numbers are there, but he's not produced what he's capable of. I still think Castellanos can be better, but Eloy can't stay healthy. And then it brings us to the main trade that he's made, where he gave up Verlander and Walsh and got back Mancini, Tucker, and Bassett. I feel like we got to give him an A for this one. Verlander, I think the regression is coming. I don't think he's going to be the pitcher, the numbers that he's at right now. Walsh, I'm not a huge Walsh fan. I think maybe 30 home runs and 90 RBIs is in reach for him, but I think that's kind of his ceiling. And to get back Tucker, who's probably top 12 player in the league, Mancini, who's been very solid, and Chris Bassett, who's nobody to sneeze at, very solid pitcher. I think Pete made out very well in this trade.
Yeah, like I said, I think getting that third player really makes a difference in that trade. Whatever player that was, like I said, whether it was the third guy was Bassett, whether it was Mancini, I don't know, but getting that third player, I think gives kind of the Peter the leg up in this one.
Yeah, so looking at Peter's team, Peter is the first place head-to-head player. He has been first place in Roto for a while, but he's kind of coughed that up a little bit. And
something that happened last year, right? Kind of sounds similar.
Why did I lose points? Peter just passed me up, and he must have pictures. He must have all his pictures going today.
Oh, don't bring that up. Oh,
but yeah, sore subject for you. But now second place in Roto, he's first place and he'll have first round bye if he maintains what he's doing now. I just look at Peter's team and I'm just not afraid of it. I mean, I might eat these words, but this team has holes all over the offense. I mean, first base, I think that where is there? Oh, sorry. There's somebody outside my house. I think that Mancini's okay, but I don't think that you want him as your long-term first baseman. I mean, the home runs still really aren't really there. No steals. Counting stats are okay, but on Baltimore, you know that the counting stats aren't really going to be great. Gleyber Torres at shortstop, he's raving about him, but he's got a 285 on base percentage, 1 steal.
Okay, 19 runs
stats, but not great. Only 19 runs scored, 10 homers. Not great. Mark Canha doesn't really bring you a whole lot outside on base percentage. Maybe he'll chip in a few steals, but 0 so far and a few runs scored. Tyler O'Neill's been hurt, but he was bad before he got hurt. He's kind of hopefully turning things around now. Vogelbach hasn't done anything in the last month. Let's see, in the last 30 days, 2 home runs, 3 RBIs for Vogelbach. And in the last 14 days, 0 home runs, 0 RBIs, 0 runs scored for Daniel Vogelbach in your lineup over the last 2 weeks. Adolis Garcia, he's going to drain your on-base percentage. He's going to chip in some home runs, power, speed a little bit, but, not really the best option there. And where's the depth? Where's the reinforcements?
There isn't. Who'd have guessed?
There's always been with Pete's team. You don't have the guys here to kind of fill in. You have to pick up Daniel Vogelbach to play utility, and then he plays like garbage, and then you lose points and lose weeks and lose categories because you're playing guys that aren't very good, because you don't have some of these offensive guys that should be bench guys that should be in your lineups over some of these guys.
Yeah.
Now, granted, we were not we were not high on his pitching staff, and it has shut us up. It has been very, very good. Best pitching staff in the league. I don't think there's much of an argument. I think that it is the best pitching staff in the league right now. He's going to love to hear me say that. Do you think there's any arguments that this is not the best pitching staff in the league right now?
I think you could make an argument. Yeah.
Okay. But I mean, Corbin Burns, probably the best pitcher in baseball. Dylan Cease, the strikeout's going to be there. The whip is a little high. That's what I don't love about Dylan Cease, that its whip goes very underrated. But yeah, I mean, 3.18 ERA isn't really, it's kind of hurting him more than he's helping him based on what his team ERA is. The 1.25 whip is certainly hurting you. The strikeouts help you, but like, he has such a big lead in strikeouts. He doesn't really need him anymore. McClanahan has been a ace. Love McClanahan. Strikeouts.
McKenzie's been the one that shocked me the most, and he came up as a top prospect, but man, he been solid for him.
Yeah, I was not expecting this kind of season from McKenzie. He's been solid. And Aaron Ashby, he's pitching very well. The whip is a little high, but I would expect the more innings he gets, the more he'll
6 games started. So I mean, how much has he really produced in his lineup though?
Yeah, exactly. And then he scooped up Nick Pivetta, and he's going to want to pedal Nick Pivetta, but I don't really have faith in Nick Pivetta. But as his fifth starter, fine, over Chris Bassett. Of course, he had Chris Bassett on his bench just get lit up last night. You couldn't have put him in his lineup, could you? Maybe he did have him in his lineup. I don't know if he had him in his lineup last night or not, but he gave up like 5 or some runs to the Padres last night. Strider and Kimbrel on his bench, Jesus Luzardo and Luis Patino waiting in the wings. The reinforcements for the pitching staff are there. He's been very stingy. He has moves that could be made. If any of these teams look to punt, if Corey or if Eddie or if any of these teams are like looking to next year, Peter has the guys to go get. I mean, he's stingy with these guys. He doesn't want to trade Patino, doesn't want to trade Luzardo, he doesn't want to trade Ashby and some of these guys in Strider, but he should, because he has some holes in his offense. He should trade for a guy like Abreu or Lindor,
exactly,
or some of these guys, but I don't think he will. I think he's too high on some of these guys, and he won't really come to a deal when he really needs to. You can only play so many pitchers. When he gets some of these guys back, I don't know what he's going to do. But I mean, even if some of these guys regress, even if McClanahan regresses to more like a 3 ERA, even if Cease kind of sustains this ERA and whip, and Pivetta becomes irrelevant, he's got guys here across the board. He doesn't even have Kimbrel in his lineup that will fill those spots. This is a very good pitching staff, but there's holes in the offense here, and it doesn't scare me.
Yeah, I pretty much echo exactly what you're saying. And we liked Peter's team coming in. Like I said when the show topped off, we both had Peter as like top 5 teams. It wasn't necessarily the fact that we didn't like the starters. It was the fact of how he assembled the depth on the bench, because that can be so important.
Yeah.
And the fact that we think that your offense could use some extra help, and every single one of your bench spots is Bassett, Meyer, Quintana, Kimbrel, Melanson, Strider, and then on even your IL spots, you have Gavin Lux and Cole Calhoun on your bench. And at some point, steals he doesn't have to worry about, right? Rodriguez, Tucker, Turner, Golden, he's fine. And I think he actually has an absolutely insane lead on steals already. Like he's gonna have the steals. So with that being said, which of these guys? I mean, we got Tyler O'Neill kind of almost unstartable with those stats. We have like you said, Vogelbach almost unstartable with those stats. Mark Canha, I would argue, almost unstartable with those stats. Yep. I think he needs reinforcements offensively. I don't know if Torres keeps up that pace. I don't know, like you said, if Mancini really kind of keeps up that pace. Mitch Garver, just because he's a catcher, you could argue he's startable, but he's on pace for 45 runs and 48 RBIs. Mm-hmm. So I think there is concerns with Peter's offense. Now, with how he's doing roto-wise, his offense has held fort and his pitching has put him to another level. Yep. But this was the same concern I had post-draft. Melanson, I know he's got 11 saves with a 7 ERA. There's no value there. Strider, hate to say it, dude. I know you've been riding him this whole time. Maybe he turns into a starter, sure. But how long are we waiting for that? Mm-hmm. How long are we like? What's Quintana? Okay, doing okay for you. Maybe he's your reinforcement. I don't know. It's kind of the same thing being said again. We really like Peter's team. There's a lot to like about it, but it's kind of almost like the back end construction that kind of scratches your head.
And the problem is that he's not going to trade Burns. He's not going to trade Cease. He's not going to trade McClanahan. You know that. And he's going to want too much for Ashby, Strider, Luzardo, and Patino, because I tried trading for Patino months ago, right at the start of his injury. He's not going to trade him now. Now he's waited so long for him. And so like, I don't really see like it's gonna be hard for him to get a deal unless he lowers kind of his asking price on some of these guys, but he should, because he has so much pitching that he should trade away some of these guys. But the fact that he
100%.
picked up Clay Holmes and he's gonna pair Clay Holmes with Craig Kimbrell as your two closers is phenomenal. I mean, that's terrifying as the saves leader right now, because I know if he wants to play those two guys, he'll pass me up in saves with those two guys. I think that Clay Holmes will probably keep the job. But yeah, I mean, I feel like there's moves to be made out there, and maybe he's like waiting to see who's going to punt or who's going to see if you can get some of the cherry pick some of these hitters off of some bad teams for some pitchers. But as we've talked about, some of these guys like Eddie and Dave and Corey and these teams that need pitching, like they should be hitting Peter up, and Peter should be giving up some of these high upside arms. But it's hard. Peter's views, he's got his guys, he loves his guys, and he doesn't want to give them up.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, and like I said, I think overall his team's going to stay solid, but it's the same thing that happened last year though. His team started off really good. We really liked it, and then towards the end of the year, he needed kind of some of those reinforcements, and he kind of fell to the wayside, almost honestly in a free fall last year.
Yeah.
And you wonder, does that happen again? There's a lot of young arms. We always mention the innings limits. McKenzie, McClanahan, Cease, even, who knows? You think those relievers are going to enter the rotation and pitch 150 innings? No. So does that same thing again happen in August, September that happened to him last year? That's my concern.
Could very well happen. And I actually sent Peter a message about Julio Rodriguez this morning, because obviously steals is a weakness for me. But like he's mentioned needing power. Oh, I need power, and he's got Julio Rodriguez. Well, what do you need Julio Rodriguez for when you have a 15 run lead or 15 stolen base lead in the category? Julio Rodriguez can only help you so much at that point. But he's like, well, he's a cheat code. And I was like, yeah, you're right. And he's solid for $18. That's great. But I think, if you wanted to trade a guy, you could get some top value for him or trade away some of these stolen bases and be in.
What about a guy like Garcia? A guy like Garcia that is getting the steals, is getting the home runs, wipe out that OBP, gets, I don't know. There's a lot of things he could maneuver, and we'll see if he does, or is he going to stick his flag in the ground and say, this is my team?
That's probably the most likely outcome at this point. All right. We got 10 minutes before you got to go.
I could probably make it 20-30 at most, but yeah.
All right, we got 2 teams to go. Our second team, which is number 3 for me, number 2 for you, is Phil's team, Special K. Is this the greatest offense we've ever seen assembled in this league?
And it's actually so good that I actually like how good it is, because he's getting such big leads on certain categories that it's going to make it where we can catch up to almost like other teams. I mean, it's crazy. And we predicted this, obviously not very surprisingly, because we knew his team was going to be that good. But I mean, wow. I mean, he is just 14 in home runs, 14 in RBIs, 14 in runs. Not only that, 13 points in steals.
It's not particularly close.
It's not particularly close. And it's going to make it where a lot of these, I mean, he is just golden right now in a lot of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And obviously, like, this is the team that it's not the scariest right now, but this is the team that we just know it's 1 or 2 moves away. He made the move trading O'Neal Cruz. He didn't need him to get Strasburg. And as you said, is Strasburg turns out to be what he can be, then Perfect. That could be huge for him. If Strasburg becomes an ace, and then he goes Rodon, Strasburg, Montas as your 1, 2, 3. You have one of the best closers in the league in Taylor Rodgers, Carrasco, Garcia, Mali kind of rounding it out. I mean, it makes a lot of sense where he's at. Pitching, even with Strasburg, the pitching is not going to be a strength of his. It's still going to be 1 or 2 moves away. I know he wants a closer, better closer. I know he wants one more pitcher, or one more like ace level pitcher. But man, if there's anybody that has the offense that they could trade away to get one, it would be him.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, it's definitely something scary. Let's take a look at some of the moves that he's made. We'll get some grades out there. Definitely active on the trade front. Traded away Presley for Hendricks, Hoskins, and Ryu. Hoskins was the only one he kept of those. So that looks like not a very good deal for him, because it's Presley for Hoskins. Hoskins hasn't really played too well. He's been okay, but carrying a little bit of a higher salary too. And I'd rather have Presley over Hoskins at those salaries. So I'd kind of give him like a D there. Then traded away Anthony Rendon, got Bauer, Benintendi, Rodriguez. I think I gave him an A on that. And I think I still maintain that it was an A, because he was able to turn Bauer Benintendi, and Rodriguez into some other pieces.
Oh yeah, for sure.
He turned Bauer into Kershaw. He turned Rodriguez was in the trade with Bryce, where he got Albies, Montas, Straw, and Salvador Perez. So he was able to make a lot of trades that made a lot of sense. He got a lot of good offers, and he couldn't refuse, and rightfully so. A lot of A's on some of these deals that we don't have to go back to all of them. Traded away Rodgers, Rosario, Garver, and Hendricks. Got back Merrifield, Plesac, and Grandal. Pretty much an A there, even though those guys weren't impactful for him. I mean, neither were the guys that he traded away. Was able to turn that haul from Merrifield into Castillo. Then he was able to turn Castillo. Does he still have Castillo? Yeah, he does. Yeah, still has Castillo, who's been decent for him. Kyle Tucker trade made too much sense for him. With the considering the haul he got back. Salvador Perez, I still think he's going to be fine. Montas has been great. Albies has been not great, but still a quality contributor, and we expect him to turn things around. And then we've pretty much talked about all these other trades. Even though I think that O'Neal Cruz is the better value, I think that getting Strasburg fit his team much better. And I think that's an A for him. Even if I think that the value is worse, trade made too much sense for him to pass up.
It made way too much sense. And when you really look at his team and the way it's constructed, I wasn't a big Carrasco guy. I know he's been good in the past, but when's the last time he's done it? He's been really solid for him this year. Luis Garcia, he paid big for him, and it's panned out so far. Hunter Green obviously was kind of a prospect guy, not doing the greatest, but the strikeouts are there. And you wonder, I do see the potential there. And you wonder if he can, over the course of the season, keep it going. Montas has been great. Rodon's been solid for him. He's got everything there. I mean, he's got the closers, he's got the okay rotation, and obviously with this lineup, man, I don't know, I don't know where he had Schwarber on his bench last week. That's how good his lineup is, and Schwarber went off and did what he did. So I mean, do we even need to spend time on how just nasty, how good his lineup is? The worst guy in his lineup is his catcher.
Yeah,
and then maybe Reese Hoskins next
was the single best catcher in the league last year with 40 some home runs.
Right. I mean, we got Dansby Swanson on pace for almost 30 steals. Jose Ramirez, we want to talk about MVP. Jose Ramirez is almost on pace for 40 home runs, 30 steals. I mean, wow. Yeah. I mean, we're talking about a lot of guys that are just going out there and doing things right now. Aaron Judge, I mean, he might have the two best hitters in the American League on his team in Ramirez and Judge at this point. So, I mean, it's been crazy. And by the way, Ohtani just sitting in his utility spot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I mean, his team is definitely, he's looking to trade Schwarber or some of these offensive pieces to get some pitching. He wants a reliever, he wants a closer, and if he's able to find it, it's definitely scary. It's a team that probably has more. Who has a higher ceiling, his team or Krim's team?
I think with how elite Phil's team is right now offensively, he can almost sit in cruise control for the rest of the season and make the perfect move for the pitcher when he needs to. I don't think there's a panic button yet. I think he can sit and wait. And I think when he needs to strike that move for a pitcher and get that elite ace guy, he can, while Krim still has a little bit of catching up to do. So I would say right now, ceiling wise, I think you got to like Phil's team overall.
And kind of like Krim, his pitching hasn't been bad either.
No.
ERA is like 6th or 7th. WHIP, he is 7th, I think. Strikeouts, he's like third in strikeouts.
A lot of his guys are pitching.
Starts, he's a little lower, but still, he's holding fort.
Hunter Green, 55 innings, 72 Ks. Montas, 70, 78 Ks. Rodon, 59, 75 Ks. He's making sure that he's got guys getting strikeouts for sure.
Yeah, so he's done a good job of just in making sure you can address the categories, controllables, as one might say, and weather that storm. And it's a scary looking team.
It's very scary.
I don't want to face. It's gotten way more.
And head to head, like honestly, when you get to the playoffs and head to head, I mean, I don't want to say you're chalking up losing 3-4 categories. Anything can happen. Each matchup is 2 weeks, but that scares me even more that every matchup's 2 weeks. You can't even catch him maybe on a bad week. You're gonna get 2 full weeks of his offense against you in head to head. That's tough.
Yeah, the one thing that I might say might be the slight weakness might be the on base percentage. If you look at the on base percentage, looks like he's kind of middle of the pack for an offense that looks the way his does. You'd think that the on base percentage would be top of the league, but it's not.
Right.
It's something I warned him about mid-year, where it's like even your studs, Jose Ramirez and Otani and some of those guys aren't the best on base percentage guys. Obviously, Aaron Judge is, but it's just something to keep an eye on. And Salvador Perez is not an on base percentage guy either, and he's
Oh,
really
sure.
dragging him down at this point. So it's just kind of something to keep an eye on. Hopefully, he can kind of, well, hopefully not, but he's
Yeah.
hopefully he can keep that on base percentage up and just be middle of the pack, and he'll still be best offense that we've seen maybe ever made for the next few years.
Yep.
So yeah, we like it, but we don't like this team as much as we like the GMsmanship of our final team. Christopher Zajak's team sliding into the DMs. Congratulations on landing number 1 in the power rankings. There's a lot to like about this team. He just seems to kind of find the diamonds in the rough lately with the pitchers. There's a lot to like with his offense, a lot to like with his pitching, and he hasn't even made a trade since the season started.
Yep.
We already analyzed this trade. He got Rendon. He probably doesn't like what happened with this trade, but he wasn't keeping Bauer, Benintendi, or Rodriguez, I don't think. So I think it was kind of, he wishes he got more from Rendon. It doesn't look good in hindsight, but I don't think he was keeping a lot of those guys. So I don't think it's any skin off his back. So let's go ahead and jump into what his team looks like. The scariest thing about Chris's team is that he is right now, where's he at here? He is 4th in Roto. He's been in 1st at some points this year. He's hanging on. His team has not hit its stride at all this year.
No.
Like, he has guys on his team that like have underperformed clearly, and like Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Bichette, really all his Blue Jays have underperformed what they should this year, and it hasn't mattered.
And they're still good. That's the thing. Like,
Yeah.
Vlad's still on pace for 39 home runs, 90 RBIs. Bichette, almost 30 home runs, 90 RBIs. Springer, 30 home runs, 90 RBIs, and they're underperforming.
Yeah. So
I mean, that's crazy.
It's scary. And he's got some injuries in the pitching staff, Freddie Peralta, Andrew Heaney. And it just seems like he has like an answer for everything. Like, he has the stolen bases. I mean, he has the stolen base from one place, but I think Pham and Bichette are going to steal a few more bases as we kind of go along here.
Even Springer.
Yep. Yeah. Springer's not a huge stolen base guy, but I mean, I think 3 so far. If Springer steals double digits.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. He's never been a big stolen base guy.
Yeah. But I mean, holy shit, Edmonds got 46 runs scored. I did not see that coming. 354 on base percentage. He's been solid. And if he hits 15 home runs and has 115 runs scored, that's something
40 steals.
I did not see coming. Yeah. With the stolen bases. So we'll kind of see what happens with Edmund and with the rest of these. But yeah, I mean, there's not really a whole lot of holes here. I mean, even Austin Hayes has been okay. I mean, counting numbers are good. On base percentage is great. 7 home runs, 30 RBIs. You'll take that as your probably worst player of your offense.
And that's the thing I was going to say. I think Chris is the only team outside of probably Phil, right? Because Phil's offense we already raved about. Yeah. Chris is the only other offense I can look at and say, I don't think there's a bad player in his lineup.
No.
I mean, really, I don't think there's a bad, like, wow, why are you starting him? Is he really worth it? I can't look at one player outside of catcher, which is a lot of people's problems right now. Yeah. I can't look at a guy and go, dang, I don't think I'd start him. Yeah, everyone's doing
JD
good.
Martinez has some home run RBI regression coming his way too.
Yep. Oh yeah. And then like I said, go ahead. I was going to say, when you go to the rotation, that's where I sometimes get worried, because I'll say this, guys like Lauer, Skubal, and Tyone. Wow. I mean, talk about who would have guessed that? Who would have guessed that from those 3?
Did the same thing last year with Freddie Peralta.
Did the same thing last year, and that's with Freddie Peralta right now on the IL. He's coming back soon. So I don't want to say Chris needs pitching, but just to kind of almost make him feel better about it, if I would say there is a need, I would actually think he needs one more like solid, not even an ace, just another solid pitcher rather than going after
Martin
hitting.
Perez or a Waka or a Mikolas or something could be useful.
Just a little bit more depth, because that's what worries about me a little bit. If the Lauer and the Skubal and the Tyone get blown up over the year, and that's me even counting on Gilbert being great. I mean, he's 25 years old. We haven't quite seen that yet, but Buehler and Anderson, and again, Buehler's kind of struggling. This is with Buehler struggling. So I think Chris' team right now is, if you just want to talk about balance and just like not really a hole, it's Chris's team.
Yeah, and I mean, Ian Anderson he's not pitched very good. I don't think there's a lot of really aggression. I just don't think he's that good. But I mean, yeah, you got positive regression coming for Walker Buehler. But I think that Eric Lauer, I don't think that this is who Eric Lauer is. I think that his fastball velocity has been a little bit down. His swinging strike rate's actually really been down his last few starts. I don't think he's going to average more than a strikeout inning over the rest of the year. Skubal has been really good. I mean, I didn't really see this coming, this breakout
No,
from him.
very uncharacteristic. Yeah.
Tyone is like gave up like 2 hits and like 3 starts or something like that. It's at he's been so good for the Yankees. I think there's some negative regression coming for a couple of these guys, but I think even if that's the case, I mean, even if you're going Buehler, Gilbert, Tyone, Skubal, Lauer, and then you get some, Freddie Peralta back at some point, and then Heaney pitched really well in his first 2 starts. Yeah, I think he could use one more pitcher. I don't like Ian Anderson as his 5, and I think that there's some regression coming for Lauer and Tyone, where I think he could use one more pitcher. He could maybe hit up if he got like a Strider or an Ashby from Peter, I think that would kind of put him in a really good spot, or from Chad, one of the pitchers that he's peddling. I think that could put him in a really, really good spot. But I mean, yeah, there's not a whole lot not to like about where he's at, even if he's not in first place right now and head or roto. I think this is the most well-balanced team. This team has pretty much everything. Maybe, I was gonna say maybe he could use another closer, but if you want saves, he's got one of the best closers in baseball. He's got Danny Jimenez. Yeah. So, I mean, it's a team that pretty much has it all. There's not really a whole lot of ways to improve it other than just pitching depth.
And then again, this is with Bo.
Yeah,
and this is with Bo and Vlad. Like you said, still not really. They're probably still both all-stars, but still not where they were last year. And that's what's, like I said, very scary. Yeah, JD Martinez, like you mentioned, very scary. So this team's got a lot going for it. It hasn't even hit its stride yet.
Nope, I would agree. And that concludes our power rankings. To kind of recap where we were, we had Chad last, and Corey, Tyler, Eddie, Justin, Dave, Bryce, Eric, Jay, Krim, Kyle, Peter, Phil, and taking the number 1 spot, Chris. We are probably at like almost 3 hours. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know how long. Any closing remarks, anything that you got to get off your tongue while we're here?
Nothing too much. I'm excited to kind of see where the season goes. I'd like to do another one of these in a month or so, kind of as we get closer to the All-Star break, kind of right around that midway point. I always like kind of doing it just to kind of see where we're at exactly at the midway point in the regular season. But it's been fun. I'm really curious to see as we get forward and see kind of all these. Baseball's a game of balance, right? I mean, some guys start off slow, some guys start off hot, but a lot of times it kind of balances itself out. So I'm curious to see if those top 4 teams continue to hold those roto spots, because there is that huge gap between 3 or 4 and 5. And I'm kind of curious to see if any of these middling teams kind of start rising up.
Who's your team after number 5 after Krim that you think can make a run?
I would say Jay's team, but he's got to stop. I mean, we looked at what guys he could have, and I hate to say myself too, because I'm just not doing that. I'm going to let my own team ride out, but I would say Jay's team.
Yeah, I think you are the obvious choice there. But I think Jay could make the run too. I don't really see it with Dave. Justin needs a lot to go right with his pitching staff. Right. He's really got to figure some stuff out if he wants to make a run. And Chad, Corey, and Tyler. Chad and Corey, I don't see it. Tyler, I do see it, but Tyler's just so far in the hole that it's gonna be really hard to dig himself out of it.
Yeah, and the thing is too, so far out of my post-draft rankings, the top 6 roto teams, I got 5 out of the 6 right. The only one I got wrong was, of course, myself. I should have replaced it with someone else. But 5 out of 6 so far. We both were kind of in agreement that there was that top tier of teams, and it's kind of holding out right now. It's kind of remaining true.
Yeah. So these were our so here are our power rankings for those of you that want to go back and see what they were last time we did the pod. Not a whole lot's changed as much as you'd think. I had you number 1. God, was I wrong about that? Maybe a little reverse jinx.
I'll try to prove you right
there by what my goal was there. But yeah, most of these guys have kind of stayed where we kind of expected them to be. Not a whole lot.
We're kind of getting it, as you would say, right so far outside of my own team, but we get a lot of flack for it. We put some bulletin board material up where people really hit that hard, but Chad's starting to become the worst team in the league again. So everything's starting to return to where it needs to be.
Yep. All right, Eric. I think they've had enough. I think we've had enough.
All right.
It's exhaustion. The MJ flu game from myself. Sorry, you had to listen to my raspy.
That was a lot of cough in there, buddy. Watch out.
Little bit. Sorry about that for all of you. But for Kyle Carbone and Eric Follman, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
See you.